I'd like to call this meeting of the Cascade Charter Township Planning Commission to order. It's Monday, November 18th. It is 7 o'clock. Please record the attendance that all of our members are here except Rob. And he called and asked for, he mentioned that he's not able to join us tonight, so it is an excused absence. I ask that everybody please join me in a pledge of allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. I have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Support. Moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None noted. Do any of the members of the Planning Commission have a conflict of interest with any of the issues before us tonight? Unnoted. I'd like to ask for approval of the minutes of the October 21st meeting. Are there any comments or changes that should be noted?
Everybody looks at Ryan. I'm just stating the obvious.
What do you think, Brian?
I give me 3 seconds to scroll through my markups here. I do not believe I had any, no.
I couldn't find any either. Well done. So I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as written.
I will support.
Moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. I'd like to now acknowledge our visitors and those wishing to speak. And these are comments are limited to 5 minutes per speaker. And these are for issues not on the agenda tonight. Does anybody have any general comments?
Well, they could be issues for Article 8, right? Because that's on a public.
Correct. That doesn't have a public hearing.
Yeah, so if you are here to talk about Article 8,
That would be their opportunity if they're here about 5085 Craft.
is anybody have
Anything?
anything to say about a truck well?
Yes, do you have comments? Come on up.
5085 Craft, if you want to speak about 5085 Craft or anything that is not on the agenda,
If you're the applicant, you'll have your own opportunity later. Just the general public.
Okay, let's move ahead with Article 7. The applicant is Jacob Bowles, 4325 Cherry Lane. It's case number 243869. Andrea,
So our dearest Danielle is here in spirit and on Zoom because she's not feeling well. This is her item, so we'll have a couple items that are presented by Danielle via Zoom. Do we have Danielle on there?
Yeah, I'm here. Did you hear me?
So
Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me now?
yes.
yes.
Okay, great, thank you. I apologize for my absence there in person. I just felt like it'd probably be best that not everybody got sick. The applicant, case number 243869, I plan to just kind of go over what the applicant is proposing to do and kind of just let the planning commission deliberate on how you feel that it meets the criteria for approval of the type 1 special land use. The subject site is located at 4325 Cherry Lane. The applicant is requesting a type 1 special land use permit to build an accessory building exceeding 832 square feet. The subject site is zoned ARC and approximately 2.3 acres in size. Adjacent properties to the north, south, east, and west are also all zoned ARC with, improved with single-family residential homes. The applicant is requesting the special land use permit to construct a 1,600 square foot detached accessory building on the residential lot intended to be utilized for storage accessory to the residential land use on site. The 1,600 square foot calculation is inclusive of a covered porch, which is a covered porch portion of the building, which is considered part of the building, given the township's definition of a building. I should note that the subject site apparently does have an existing detached accessory structure, likely under 200 square feet in size, which is why a building permit was never issued for that structure. However, given the site size that's less than 3 acres, only one structure is permitted. So I should just note that should the commission find a favorable approval for the application, that that existing structure will need to be removed. With regard to section 17031A, goes into detail of the type 1 special land use permit for accessory buildings. And of course, planning commission considerations related to staff's finding. Unless the commission would like me to go through all of staff's findings, that essentially concludes the gist of the proposal.
Okay, with the, Andrea, do you have anything you want to add to that? Would the applicant, Jacob Bowles, like to come forward?
I have questions for him.
Okay. Brian, you can ask a question.
Yeah.
I have some questions for you, Danielle, and I think some of it might be just typographical errors, but
Okay.
on page 2,
Mm-hmm.
the planning packet, the page that says page 2 at the bottom, it's actually page 10 of the packet, I believe.
Okay.
Right below the table, you say table 4.2, the zoning ordinance above requires a maximum of 2 accessory buildings for parcels 3 acres and smaller, but the table says 1. So that it's a typo, right? Because again, you're asking
Yes,
the shed.
I apologize. Thank you. Mhm.
And then my next question is, you've gone through and done this percent of buildable acres, but it only includes the singular accessory building that this applicant and previous applicants have brought before us. Is that correct? It doesn't include the primary residence or other accessory buildings? So
That
let's say,
is correct.
how is that, I guess, useful to us? Really, all we care about is the total build out, correct? Looking at the percent of one accessory building is, I guess I'm trying to figure out what utility am I supposed to be using that for?
So the intention here is just to essentially compare the proposal against what has been previously approved, by just demonstrating that the overall percentage of compared to the property as a whole, and how that kind of lays out through different zoning districts. So it's not intended to, like, you know, it's more so a comparison report of, you know, here's a good case record of what has been approved in the past, and kind of that to demonstrate that line of thinking.
Okay, because you draw the conclusion it's 0.2% larger, but then I look, you know, they're at 1.6, and I see numbers as large as 2.98. So yeah, so I guess they're slightly larger than the average, but there's some huge, what I call outliers here.
Right, exactly. This is just a comparison table to show what has been approved in recent years.
Okay.
I don't know if this is as much a question for Danielle as it would be for Andrea, but in the past, we used to get an inventory of all of the accessory buildings in the township that showed the square footage of the home, the acreage, and then the square footage of the accessory building. And I found that to be a little more useful than this method of just a handful and the percent of the property coverage. I appreciate somebody taking the time to create this, but I think that the inventory sheet, because the other thing too is you could get a feel for what was in the area surrounding that accessory building with that inventory list, because they had the addresses on it. So you could look at it and say, okay, that part of the township, they run larger than they do in this part of the township. So I thought there was that, I'm just saying, I think it would be handy for the planning commission to have that in the future.
You said home acreage and then total,
You'd have to
Yeah.
look at a packet from, 2 years ago and it would be in there, I'm sure. It was generally with, I think it's,
Percentage of
yeah, I think it's good for the township to keep building on that inventory sheet because I think it's good information to have.
And this is great information, but it needs to be coupled with something. By itself, it's kind of only half of the picture. Yeah.
Alan?
So it appears, based on the information here, that there's an accessory building already. Are they gonna drop that accessory building in allowance for the new one?
That would be my recommendation for if the commission were to approve, that would be a condition of approval I would recommend, yeah.
Okay.
Brian?
Has anybody brought to the attention of the applicant that this section of our ordinance might be changing? And we're leaning towards, I guess, more leniency based on our previous meetings, so they might not, if they were to apply, I don't know what period of time from now, they might not need to move the shed.
I believe that the conversation came up. There was was that was. There was an email that, should I hold off on this? Is it going to change? And I, after our last meeting, was like, I really don't know that I can give you a clear answer of what's gonna change and when it's gonna change.
Okay.
So I didn't feel like that was fair.
There's no
Try to
guarantee.
give it
There's no
time.
guarantee. I just want him to go, "Oh, darn, I wish I would have waited a month."
Yeah, it came up.
Perfect. That's all we can do.
Any other questions? Yes, Chris?
Thank you, Chairman Moxley. Danielle, in your recommendation, I don't see anything about, it typically, when these recommendations have been made by staff in the past, they'll address lighting and that the accessory building cannot be used for working as well. Is there a reason it was left out, or have you looked at the other recommendations that have been issued by the township as a basis for building a template?
I have, yes. This staff review was built off of a previous one. I can't speak to exactly which one it was, but I think to that point, though, that if the commission were to decide to approve, that I would recommend that be a condition of approval that you would carry forward.
We
I already made-
always put lighting in, Chairman Moxley, as you know, because these accessory buildings can be extremely bright and neighbors don't typically like bright lights next to them. So something we might want to address.
Especially with the homes as close as they are.
I mean, if my house was next to theirs, I wouldn't want a bright light.
Mm.
Just me,
And
And we have standards for lighting.
which we've listed
And-
typically in the recommendation.
Yeah.
I'd like to include stormwater runoff from these
thinking about
pole
that.
barns too, that keep it on your own lot.
Yeah.
As part of the approval, even though it's in an ordinance, I'd like to see it brought up in the approval.
Yeah, so do we know where the, Yeah.
Oops.
Brian?
Especially when we start to see some of these pole barns that have, a 6-lane highway going in, so they can have an RV, a trailer. That's a lot of them.
Airplane.
Yeah, big roofs with a lot of
Roofs
runoff.
with a lot of impervious
Yes,
surfaces.
Chris?
follow-up question, Chairman Moxley, do we have any sense of where I assume this is a well and a septic, do we have a sense of where that is on the lot?
So those will likely be handled through the building process, before any building permits are issued.
Okay, we can have the applicant up and answer
Yeah.
ask questions, so. Thank
Jacob
you.
Bowles, you want to come up and introduce yourself? I think we all know where you live now.
Yeah, Jacob Bowles, thank you. Have you show that view? I don't know, can you guys see?
Yeah.
We've got it.
Okay, so the well is located in the front yard.
Well, we can't see it now.
No,
Yeah.
we could see
could.
it, but now it's very difficult.
This is why staff should be having this included in the site plan. That used to be a standard.
With dimensions.
That used to be a standard.
Okay, so where on the lot is it?
Yeah,
I can-
there's another view that shows where I'm recommending the pole barn be placed as well, if that is needed. Yeah, that one right there.
Right there.
So the well is in the front yard, just off the corner of the front garage. And the septic is located, yeah, right where your cursor is where the septic is.
No.
Those are the
Here.
fingers of the septic and the,
Yeah.
yeah, so the well's up in that area.
And the septic's over here.
Septic fingers are out there and the septic tanks are right off the front door. So that'd be like the blue corner with the two red intersections.
Where do you plan to put the pole barn?
It'll be in the back left, yeah, corner.
Like here?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go, the green,
There you go.
green box, 40 feet off of the back line and 90 feet off.
You're
of
fine
the-
removing the other shed?
Yes, I plan to remove that. It's a 12 by 12 shed.
Sorry, Chairman Moxley.
Okay.
Ordered.
Other questions, Ryan?
So first of all, one of the best presentations I saw so far in my 2 years here of where I can put my shed or my pole barn. So kudos on that. It's really clear. But my question is, the images that you supplied makes it look like there's standing water there currently. The township images on like the township part of the packet, looks like there's green grasses. In your images, it looks like the same color as the like pond across the street and stuff. So do you normally have standing water in that area?
Not typically, no, maybe just after the snow runoff. In the spring, there'll be some standing water, but it drains pretty good after that.
Scott?
Do you plan to change the grade significantly to prep for this building or?
They've,
Considered to be,
the builder I talked to said he'd want to bring it up a couple feet just because of that low area
Low
on
area.
the back corner, just to make sure that water doesn't come up into that.
thank you.
But yeah, that corner is the low spot for all four of the houses back there, so.
But you're just bringing up the low side. You're not bringing up the
Correct.
whole.
Correct.
2 feet. Okay.
But
Yep.
Just a second, Chris?
I think I'm gonna ask the same question that Ryan's about to. So if you bring up the low spot, is the water gonna dump into your neighbor's yard? Because it looks to me like that's their front yard that,
No, so yeah, they're graded
okay.
into all of their water comes into
Got
my
it.
yard currently.
Got it. So, I mean, have you done any kind, has your builder done any kind of, groundwater? Plan or,
Not at this point. They wanted me to get this approval before
got
we moved to those steps.
Good.
They knew this was the first step, yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Bowles? Any other comments?
None at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to go to public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded to go into public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now in public hearing. Does anybody in the audience like to make a comment or come up and address this issue? Any neighbors joining us? Anybody online? Nick?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
support?
Moved and supported to close public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay. I would entertain a motion for approval on this.
I'd make a motion that we,
Do we want to have any discussion on the stormwater runoff and?
I think we just make it part of the condition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
go ahead, Ryan.
I'll do it. I'm ready. I got a list.
Go.
over here.
You got it. Make sure the lighting and the work stuff.
I got it. Case number 243869, make a motion to approve the special use permit to build an accessory building over 832 square feet with the conditions that the existing structure be removed prior to the final building inspection. And the building cannot be used to run a business, and any outdoor lighting has to meet our township regulations. And any water runoff from the building needs to remain on site. And it cannot be used for a dwelling or business. I got business.
I'll support that.
Can you make one amendment? Instead of over 800 square feet, can we just say 1,600 square feet since that's what he's coming? to us?
Yeah, I was reading off the agenda and it didn't say that on there, so that would be fine. If that's what the
Yeah.
request is, 1,600?
Yeah.
Okay, and that includes the overhang area.
Yes.
Okay,
All right.
any other comments
Fine
or
with that.
amendments?
I support it.
Moved and supported, moved by member Scott, PC, seconded by Chris Nordike. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. Welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. Okay, moving to Article 8,
Battery died.
case 24-3873. Our applicant is Mr. Adam Nelson. Property address 5085 Craft Avenue. Andrea, is this yours?
Danielle's, well,
Okay, Danielle.
Thank you. The applicant, Adam Nelson, MSI Renovations, on behalf of 5085 Craft, is seeking site plan approval for a new truck well and loading dock and outdoor storage area for display of tiles in the front of the existing building. The subject site is located in PUD number 50, the Meadowbrook PUD, as well as Airport Overlay B. So the project would be subject to the Meadowbrook PUD, Airport Overlay B, and Chapter 21 of Site Plan Review. The subject site is approximately 5.9 acres in total. The existing land use is a light industrial business. Adjacent properties include other properties within PUD 50, Meadowbrook PUD, Airport Overlay B, as well as industrial and airport overlay B. So this one, section 14.11 or 14.11 of the zoning ordinance permits general warehousing and storage in overlay B district by right. Offices are also permitted use by right in both PUD number 50 and overlay B. Section B of PUD 50 describes the purpose and intent of the Meadowbrook PUD, which states essentially that permitted uses in the Meadowbrook Phase 1 and Phase 2 currently and will include outdoor storage, truck traffic, loading and unloading of goods, including manufactured items, manufacturing of goods, warehousing of goods. So it should be noted that neither PUD 50 or the zoning ordinance include requirements for outdoor display areas. So because of that, staff have conducted the review pertaining to outdoor storage because that's the closest related to this particular request. PUD number 50 stipulates the planning commission shall have the sole authority to approve outdoor storage, which is primarily why you see it before you this evening. Given permitted uses listed in overlay B, as well as purpose intent of PUD 50, staff had determined that the proposed interior renovations and associated uses are consistent with the proposal. Interior renovations include a new office, a new showroom with no retail components indicated, a new warehouse, and modifications to the existing HVAC system, interior lighting, and interior electrical distribution. So again, a lot of those interior renovations will be handled through the building process. The section 19D with regard to off-street parking and loading. Essentially, the site plan conditions propose 103 parking spaces, 70 of which are west of the building, 33 of which are east of the building, whereas 50 parking spaces in total would be required per the site plan conditions by utilizing minimum parking requirements listed in table 19B. So as you can see, the table kind of weighs that out, and the parking on site is well above and beyond what would be required per the existing conditions. The applicant has stated that no new exterior lighting is proposed. Should any exterior light changes arise, that will be have to be required. A review and approval would have to be required through the planning department. Same as with signage, a new wall sign on the building's east elevation is proposed. However, dimensions have not been provided. So the applicant shall obtain a separate permit for the proposed sign with details provided of what's being proposed there. Regarding landscaping, the applicant is proposing 3 24-inch boxwood to screen the HVAC equipment on the south side of the building, 1 6-inch Norway spruce on the west side, and 4 24-inch boxwood on the east side of the building, just north of the existing sign. The planning commission has the authority to approve the landscaping plan either as presented or a differing condition, provided that discussion kind of leads there. So just note too that the existing site conditions do include a berm fronting Craft Avenue with a bunch of mature growth pine trees screening the building. It is likely that the proposed landscaping conditions meet the general intent of the zoning ordinance when in conjunction with existing standards. However, the planning commission shall determine the adequacy there. Regarding outdoor storage, so the images on page 3 of the staff report indicate the level or the intensity of outdoor storage for which the applicant is proposing. Again, this is kind of more of a display rather than outdoor storage, but because there are no requirements to balance that against that, that's the reason why we went in this direction. Outdoor storage of the tiles and turf display area proposed in front of the building facing Craft. The tile area is intended to include 6 pavers, approximately, excuse me, 96 square feet in size each. This is a total proposed area of 576 square feet. Outdoor storage area is proposed to be located approximately 71 feet from the front property line, adjacent to the existing building, which would be behind the berm. No on-site retail is proposed at this time. With regard to loading and unloading, the PUD 50 stipulates adequate screening for loading and unloading areas. Improvements to the existing loading dock is an expansion proposed on the rear side of the building with 2 loading docks. Given the existing natural thick green belt of natural vegetation on the north side of the site, as well as location on the rear side of the building, it is not likely that the expansion of the loading and unloading area will cause adverse effects to any adjacent properties or would be seen from any major roads or any access roads. The site plans also indicate 2 new overhead doors for trucks on the west side of the building. It is not likely that the overhead doors will cause site circulation issues, given that trucks already access that portion of the site. So it's all existing infrastructure that's intended to just shift a little bit. So staff report notes items for the planning commission to determine through your discussion if the proposed outdoor storage area is appropriate, if the landscaping details are appropriate, and if the 2 overhead doors are appropriate, with as well as considering the requirement for screening per PUD number 50. So the planning staff is recommending approval of the proposed display area and outdoor storage, as well as a new truck well indicated on site plans dated 11/01/2024, with several conditions that relate to the planning commission's findings.
Do the commissioners have any questions for Danielle? Ryan?
I'm kind of confused on the parking, to be honest. So, I guess to start with your table, again, I think there's a math issue here, which helps the application in a way. I believe 47.75 times 0.67. So let's just say it's 5 times 0.7, which would be 35. But I think it's actually smaller than that because I rounded up on both. So it's saying it requires 40 spaces. Again, is the math just wrong, or is there a scalar wrong? Is it 0.67 per 1,000, or is it higher? Because I think that 40 spaces should actually be 32.
Let me double check that. I'm really not sure how that happened.
Okay, so if you can check on that, it might be 40, but where I'm going with this is it caught my eyes like, wow, there's a lot of extra parking there, and we often allow deferred parking, but then I looked and said, well, it's already paved. And then I read the next section, the letter that was sent, I believe, to you. And the applicant, I don't know how to say this name, Ghaffari, it's from the memo. And it's page 1 of their memo. They say they actually share parking with 5101 Craft, which is basically across the street there. And then 5505 Craft, which is about a mile down the road. So I think they mean 5105, that would be my guess. So 5101, 5105, and then this one at 5085 seem to all share parking. So my next question is 103 enough? So we're saying he needs 50, but I think he actually needs 42 for his or her application. But we're not taking into account, I see nowhere in the table we take into account their admission of that they share this parking. So how can we verify that we have enough parking for the 3 buildings that actually share this space?
Okay, one second, I'm trying to find the parking table.
The parking is actually 32 spaces is required for the warehouse
Okay,
and
so-
11 spaces required if we round up
Okay,
for the office that's located in the same building. So the total parking spaces that were required for this site would be 43.
okay, so 43, so he has 103 striped apparently, or will be striped. So is 60 enough for 2 other addresses? If this address alone requires 43,
We can actually look into this because, to be honest, all of this is administrative site plan review. Really, we're at the point where the question per the ordinance is, do we find this outdoor storage to be appropriate for this site? Usually we would require an outdoor storage by special use permit. But in PUD 50, it doesn't say special use, it just says outdoor storage or display of materials requires planning commission approval.
right, but we usually look at the things holistically, right?
Sure.
Okay, so
Maybe we should listen to the applicant for a moment and maybe you can shed some light on this.
Would Mr. Nelson like to come forward?
Hey, good evening. I'm Adam Nelson with Ghaffari Associates here representing my MSI Surfaces for this property. In terms of your question right now about the parking, it's actually the shared access to parking. Each property has their own parking. So it's the road that goes through that's shared access.
okay,
So we're actually over parked for the particular use. It was a higher intensity use before.
Okay.
And we're just changing the mix of it and it's actually reducing the parking requirement.
Questions for Mr. Nelson?
So the tiles, are they gonna be laid flat? Or are they gonna be up? Because I saw 2 different photos with 2 different.
Yeah, the best way to think of it for the tile display is a paver, like a patio.
Okay.
And then you'll have an A-frame with some quartz that's tipped up. So they're like 4 feet by 8 foot size quartz. Intended uses would be like your countertop at home potentially through another distributor.
Okay.
So what you see in the back side of the image is those A-frames that are stood up. So those will change as materials change, but that would be screened by a 2-foot masonry wall in front. And then the decorative sidewalk effectively is in front of that you would see when you drive to the property.
The decorative sidewalk is the other samples, right?
Yeah, yep.
Scott?
What is the reason for the display? I mean, is it so that you can see how they weather? Is it so that people can come look
So-
at them and pick out colors? Or what's
So the salespeople that are coming to MSI Surfaces can see the material outside.
And show it to customers.
Yeah. It's not a car, but same kind of idea, right? If you have a
So
car in
you're
front of a dealership.
basically educating the salespeople that go out and do the retail sales?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Other questions?
Just from my own knowledge, why does it have to be outside? Just, that's,
that's what they do.
Ryan?
Normally, the last few applicants, we've seen kind of the turning radiuses of the trucks and stuff to make sure that. the loading
Yeah, it's
dock
an
above
existing
grade-
site that already has truck wells on the backside and a loading dock that drives in and out.
Yes.
So we're just adding 2 truck wells inside the building to the north. And so it's already utilizing the circulation routes that are already there. So it was unnecessary to bring that up on the drawing.
Other questions? Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. I'm here if you have any others.
Nope, I actually have one more.
Hang on.
I had several.
Wait,
I just
there's
can't move
more.
fast enough through my, I might have missed it too. This is a huge packet. Railings for the, record. For the truck well. Are they captured in any of the drawings? I know we've had issues
Yes.
with.
So the existing wall has a railing and the new wall, if it requires it, it'll have a railing.
Okay. But are the heights shown anywhere on this or?
No, that'll be part of the building permit application. But we will provide those, anything over 30 inches high.
And then just one last one, I just want to make
Mhm.
sure. It says that you have it, your own memo says current site conditions include a shared parking lot, and you're saying it's shared access easement.
Correct. So it's, if you drive out there, it's contiguous with the drive. So,
Yeah, I
yeah,
got up on satellite, so I just want to make sure. So
Yep.
you're not shared parking, shared access.
yeah, that's my understanding. Yep.
Okay, any other questions for Adam? Thank you.
All right. Thank you much.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion. Who wants to
Well,
take a
it
shot
says
at
that
it?
we have, I guess there's 3 items here that list that we need to discuss and determine. One was the outdoor storage component, if we agree to that. One is the proposed landscape details, if they're appropriate. And one is the, if the addition of the 2 doors is appropriate. I don't see any red flags here.
I don't
myself, but
Hang on, Alan, what do you got?
I mean, the doors don't bother me. I mean, I gotta get that. The outside storage, I mean, it's out in the middle, yeah, but my, you know, I am like, it's not about this applicant, it's about the applicant 5, right? Like, are we setting precedent saying, now we're opening the door for other outdoor storage, right, displays? And now, I mean, the coffee shop comes to.
I mean, do we care if it's light industrial though, and they're selling they're selling an industrial product, like, I don't, like, does that make a difference? I don't know, I'm just.
I'm on the fence. I kind of agree with him, like, if it was something living, breathing, and it needed light to survive outside or something, right? But why is the necessity? I like your question, just because it's installed outside, there's a lot of things that are installed outside that.
Yeah.
You look at inside, I just don't know.
As an architect, I'd just like to give my input here.
Mhm.
Frequently, I've been to brick suppliers, like Lincoln Brick and some of the others in the area that, they had their brick displays outside laying flat. And under natural light, you get a true essence of what the color is. And then you have a better chance to say yay or nay, or let's move on to something else. But I have no problem with the flat panel display they're doing here. It's raised, what, 2 feet above the ground? The masonry behind is 2 feet tall. Okay. So otherwise it's flat. Okay.
And how big is the display? Is it 96 square feet? So those brick displays that you looked at, were they that big? As an architect?
They were probably smaller than that. They were probably more like 50 square feet at
It's
most.
in the back too.
Yeah,
Most-
that's my thing. I mean,
most
some
supply
of the-
places
Yeah, so the,
We keep saying it's in the back, it's in the.
yeah,
front.
the pavers
Usually-
in the front of the building, there's a number of sections there, and I think we have like 537 square feet of space for that. But keep in mind, it's behind the berm, it's behind the mature plants, it's behind all that screening that already exists on craft. So you actually have to get to the property to be able to see it.
Pine trees.
Yep. And you mentioned the landscaping, there's 4 trees that are being removed, and in replacement of those, we're adding the additional screening in the front of the building with the shrubbery, as well as it was suggested that maybe adding a tree in the front, but you know, we wanted to add more screening in the back, so we've supplemented the screening of the truck well loading dock area with that additional tree on the southwest corner of the building.
Any other questions, Brad? Thank you for coming back up. Okay. Any further discussion by commission members?
He's trying to sell his wares in a light industrial area. I guess that's where I don't have as much of an issue with it, like. If it was, you know, in a more congested area where it could cause, I don't know, traffic stop or something like that, but like where this is, I've driven
dead
it,
street.
it's a dead end
I don't
street.
disagree. I'm just concerned about now somebody comes in a high traffic area and they say, hey, when you guys did here.
We could say you're not on a dead end.
I see where Alan's coming from on this. I mean, my experience in this type of thing is when you go to look at pavers or mulch, stone, any of that kind of stuff, it's usually in the fenced in area in the back. It's not usually at the front of the building when you first come in. And my concern isn't necessarily for this spot in
Right.
this location, but what if somebody else in light or in industrial zone property decides they want a display of something else out front?
Right on Cascade.
Are we somewhat
Setting precedent.
setting a precedent by, I mean,
It's lag.
It's something similar to fences, right? We approved one because of the unique circumstances.
exactly, does it make it more difficult to be more restrictive on the next? I guess that would be a good question for legal
Yeah,
counsel.
Yeah, okay. You're not saying, I mean, it's not a legally binding precedent, maybe in perception of fairness, but each property, no matter how similar, is not identical. And each request is going to have its own individual variables. So you've got to take each case as it comes to you.
Right.
This one's on a dead end. I've expressed my, where this building is. It doesn't seem like it's gonna be an inhibitor, and if we are looking at it uniquely as its own, like that's. I hear you on it, but
I
yeah,
concur
Yeah.
with you. I just want to make sure that that's noted so that if somebody else comes along later, it's
Can we
not in the
put-
report. Well, we did it there, so we should
That's
do
why
it
we
here.
almost wish.
That's
it was
what I'm
a
worried
special
about.
use Permit, right? Cause that gives us a little more.
could we put it as a part of our approval that we're doing it because it is a light industrial facility on a dead end street
And it's shaded from the road,
and shaded from
from the
the.
berm and the trees.
What does our trustee think?
I'm okay with it.
Well, okay. All
Well,
right.
then maybe you should make a motion.
Yeah, I
to
think
that
you should.
effect.
Come on.
Can I have a motion, please?
I can make the motion,
Thank you, Chris.
get to the case number.
242873. No, 387.
3873.
Case number, thank you. 243873. I recommend that we approve it with staff recommendations. That we weren't adding anything additional, so. My motion is to approve with staff recommendations as is.
Any amendments to that?
Support.
There we go.
Okay, motion by Chris, support by Timmy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so it passes, motion passes 4-2. 6 total. Enough checks. Okay, congratulations, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming
Have a
in.
great night.
Okay, moving on.
Scrolling.
Case number 243868. For Lakeland Pallets at 3700 Craft Avenue.
Page 40 of 121.
Oh, it's 42.
Okay, is this Danielle or is this Andrea? Okay, Andrea,
So
take it away.
it's Actually, two-part approval. This is 3700 Craft Avenue. It's located on the south side of 36th Street at the dead end of Craft Avenue. To the west, we have a current vacant industrial property along with a mineral mining operation. To the east, we have forested area. This is a 36-acre parcel, 37-acre parcel, and only the southeast or southwest corner is currently developed. To the south, we have the CSX railroads. Yes.
And the airport.
Railroad and the airport. This was previously used for a bottling company or bottling operation for Coke. It's now being utilized for pallet construction for Pepsi.
Pepsi.
Well,
Town club or something, wasn't it?
And they did the property and sold it to Lakeland Pallets. This is a little bit larger of a building than they were previously using, but in a larger site. So the approval itself was not required. It was an administrative site plan review for a change in use in the industrial area. However, during the review, we realized one, that they were proposing outdoor storage, and two, that they were proposing outdoor storage in the setback. So the setback requirements for outdoor storage are 100 feet from the front setback and 50 from the side setback. This did go to the ZBA last, Monday, I believe the 12th. Tuesday, the 12th, and it was approved, for the proposed, outdoor storage in the setback. Reasoning being, there's no third party on this one. You have, industrial uses with limited access, no public access and limited access for employees. The existing, vegetation on the west and south side was, a requirement of approval that they would locate that within, or that they would maintain all existing vegetation on the west and south side. It's actually found that the location in the existing vegetation screens any outdoor storage better than if it were placed in a different area on the site. An additional condition of approval is that it was approved by the planning commission tonight for outdoor storage of equipment and material. Also not included in our packet is an email from the fire department. Fire department went out today, and there is concerns, obviously, with wood, combustible wood, that we make sure that that the proper fire aisles are in place, and that all of the outdoor storage is placed correctly to prevent, if there were a fire, to contain the fire. So I don't have the email right in front of me, but the fire inspector did do a site visit today and made a couple additional requirements that usually a fire aisle would need to be 20 feet, but considering, the extent of the outdoor storage of flammable material and access on the site, be able to get the fire truck around the entire site, he's recommending 30 feet. He's also made some other recommendations, that obviously all of the aisles stay clear, and that there is a break of 8 feet in between the outdoor storage located on the east side of the site, as shown on your plans right now. So these plans will be modified if the planning commission feels that they're comfortable moving forward with an approval tonight for outdoor storage. And I would recommend that the condition, an additional condition of approval, that the site plans would be modified to meet the requirements of the fire inspectors.
I was out there today, drove around, and I was amazed at how congested the site was and how tall the piles of pallets were, and they were all tight against one another, especially along the east side.
Yeah.
And yeah, the concerns by the fire department, I think, are well founded. Alan?
So I have a couple of questions. I'm looking at page 48 on the packet. The green area, is that where they're proposing? Yep, that's the one. Yep. Is that where they're proposing to store the pallets on the green?
Yes,
Okay.
but that's subject to change.
Yeah. So I guess my concern is worst case scenario, let's say some of those pallets light on fire and, our fire department's great, but it may be 10 minutes to get there. And guess what? Now all those woods that are nice and close are now on fire, and pretty soon we've got a pretty large problem on our hands. So I mean, I'm not sure 20 feet from the woods is enough. I mean, if those pallets are big and they catch on fire, those woods are catching on fire.
I have full faith in our fire department to assess this properly. I'm not a fireman.
4-minute response.
4-minute response.
I should add too, that you can see on this site plan that there's an area of the woods that's cleared up. An area there will also be removed because there is a fence there. They want to keep that area clear so that in the winter they can actually push snow into that area and there'll be snow removal. So there's access.
Ryan?
You'd mentioned the property to the west is vacant, so they sold or they're abandoning their operation on the other side of the street and moving across the Pepsi.
Yeah. The applicant needs to further if that's on the market right now. but we-
Okay, but I'm just trying to understand, because part of me, I say, wow, they're already operating across the street, so apparently they're simpatico with the operation of the airport, and the airport hasn't complained about birds and stuff living in the pallets and that type of stuff. But then I look at the overhead imagery, And I don't see a 30-foot fire access around the buildings currently or these rows. So,
Our fire department can handle it.
so are they out of compliance currently? Or are we putting new rules that didn't exist?
What happened was the applicant reached out when he was looking at the building or buying this building way back in, I want to say March or April
Yeah.
of 2024. It was right around, the time that I had started. And had asked if this was an allowed use. They actually saw a property use verification and received one that said this is an allowed use. And that was the extent of what the property use verification said. So later they were doing some electrical work and that electrical inspector was like, hey, did you know this is happening? And right away, I had already talked to him, I called him, and said, oh, I didn't realize that, I got the property use verification, and I assumed that meant we were go. And I explained to him that that we still needed a change of use, an application for change of use. He immediately was like, okay, he had it to me that day, and we started the review. I don't believe at all that there was anything nefarious, there was a little bit of miscommunication on what was required to move forward. So he had already started that moving process. They're operating there now, and now as soon as they heard that was required, got right on the permits.
No, I'm sorry, maybe I didn't answer that question. I don't propose anything to fires. I'm just saying, like, the fire department's saying for them to be successful, they need 30-foot clear around the building and they need 8-foot clearance in rows. When they're operating across the street, this imagery, I think, is from 2023, I don't see any of that. So my question is, did our fire code change? Or are the operation I have a picture of
Yeah,
not in compliance? Basically, do they have a history of not following
no,
standard procedures for our fire department?
no, I'm not gonna try to get up an aerial right now, we've done
Okay.
something up.
No problem.
However, this is a smaller building. If you can see from this picture, if you look in the bottom, the building that they previously operated in, one was landlocked and two was a smaller building. So because it's an existing building and because it's a larger building, the fire department determined whether, through in this review, that the existing site would need access all the way around because of the size of it. But they were compliant with fire at their previous location.
Perfect.
Good. Yeah, fire's a valid concern out there because, it's all wood and it's more than 20 feet high.
So we talked about height today. The applicant stated that usually their stacks are about 16 feet high. The fire department found that 20 feet was the max height that they could go up to.
Okay.
I felt the same way in seeing that, and that was, the fire department said they could handle 20 feet in that location, and that was expressed that they operated about 6.
All right, I'd like to ask the applicant Joel Bodbill to please come forward and give us your name and address and tell us a little bit about this.
Good evening, Joel Budbow, 3700 Craft Avenue. Thank you for taking the time to review this tonight. So we were operating across the street for about 18 years and have annual inspections with the fire department, meet all of their requirements for us, and called in April when we were looking at purchasing this property with the ability to grow the operation and expand down the road if should the need arise. So they told us that we could do that, and we went forward with that, understanding that we had a verification of use. So we're operating there today, and the drawing that's currently up on your screen shows that we do intend to comply with the fire department's recommendations regarding how they can access the building in case of fire.
And providing the spacing between the pallets.
Correct, yes, that's on the east side, and on the east side of the property where most of the pallets are stored. And what they wanted is to have some sort of barrier between the stacks running from north to south. So breaking up the stacks, and we told them we could comply with that as well. And we've been working with them on it.
Questions for Joel?
Chairman.
Yes.
So this drawing is, I'm trying to figure out the sequencing here. So this drawing is compliant with what the fire department is requesting, or will this need to be reconfigured?
So I can't say that the drawing is to scale exactly, but the space that is not highlighted green would comply with what the fire department is asking.
So essentially that's 30 feet.
Correct.
Other questions?
Have you ever had a fire in the 18 years that you've been in operation?
No, sir.
Long overdue, huh?
No, please no. Mr. Chair. Ouch.
Oh.
I did not say that.
Okay,
I have one question. In Andrea's recommendations, and she has been great to work with so far. The recommendation stated that perhaps we would need to add slatting to the fence to have screening on the southwest side where you see on that drawing there where the trailers of Pepsi were parked. They had no screening there. The woods offer a significant amount of screening. We're leaving those woods and along the south side. So, and really the building screens almost all the rest of the storage behind the building. So I was curious if you would be willing to consider not allowing us to have to tape the fence or to slat the fence, but to leave the fence open as it is. So,
Well, since he just poked at you on his comedy, I think you clearly just discussed that it's a dead end in the light industrial, so we don't care.
yeah, there's very
We
little
just set
traffic.
precedent the
on
case.
Wouldn't say
before
we
you.
don't care. I think we're suggesting that
I'm trying to add levity.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
I care.
Andrea, do you know what the specifics of that request were? I mean, obviously, I'm pretty sure you weren't trying to screen the woods to the east.
No, the picture that I just pulled up, it wasn't for that area, it was this area, so this is a picture if you were standing on Craft. Looking to your looking west at the building, that they actually have a drive right there. This is the only area that I was saying might, use some slatting, just to kind of hide your beautiful palettes. I think we would be okay if they weren't.
On the
Hidden.
street side of the building is
Yeah.
where you think they
This is
need the
about-
slatting, not, so that would be the west side of the
West
building,
side.
if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
Okay. Just
There-
for clarification.
we could easily screen that corner right there being the northwest corner to the building. That gate that you see on the edge of the picture there's a gate there that opens the yard. Beyond that, it is the elevation dips and there's quite a bit of trees and
Sure.
greenery there that it'd kind of be redundancy screening, but I'd be happy to comply with screening that corner there.
Ryan?
Again, maybe I'm out of scope, but so this drawing that you have up, it's not there anymore. You have 10 parking shaded, so you've got where all your pallets are, and you have 10 parking places. Is 10 all that's required for this? Like, we just got done talking about all this parking
No, that's lower.
loading. I thought it said parking.
The purple shows 10 loading docks that we use to load out. All the red boxes have the parking.
Or loading spaces. I get.
Okay.
Old, sorry, misread it.
Yeah, but based on that photo that was just shown, is there on the south and the east side, let me see on the picture that I'm seeing, yeah. Is there, how much space is there from that fence? I'm guessing that fence goes all the way down, correct? How much space is there from that fence and when the wood starts? Because it looks like there's some grass area there. Is there 20 feet between the fence and the woods? Is some areas the woods bat right up to the fence?
I would say that on the other side of that fence there, it maybe runs 20 feet of grass and then the woods runs right to the fence. And in fact, it's growing over it in sections of it. So if you'd like to see a screen, the other side of that, another up to where the woods begins, we could do that as well.
See, and I'm not concerned about the screen. I like the corner idea. My concern is if you get a fire there and that's gonna light those woods on fire. That's just, the screen in the corner I'm good with. I'm concerned about fire. And I know you haven't had one and I don't think you're gonna have one. But that's my concern.
I understand.
Never know.
Never know, yeah.
Those woods also have wetlands.
Scott?
Hear that?
Were there parking calculations on this one? Because I'm not finding those in the.
No, I didn't include them. I don't
Okay.
recall right off the top of my head, but again, this is an administrative site plan review and if there's adequate parking based on their use within the red areas and I don't remember the numbers right off the top of my head.
Well, I just want to be consistent if, I mean, parking seems to be a big issue for a lot of our applicants, and so I think it's important to make sure that we're consistent with applicants, since a lot of them don't always necessarily agree with our recommendations for parking.
I guess I don't, can I just point of clarification? You say this is just an administrative site plan review, but what was the case? 2 cases before this that we had a whole discussion about parking? Was that administrative site plan review as well? Right. Yeah, I just think it'd be nice if we treated all the applicants equivalent.
So I guess my point is, we're going to do the review. I've done the review. I don't remember the numbers right off the top of my head.
Okay.
But the red area is the calculation that we said was required for his use, or that this business's use. The area on the northeast side is access parking from what's required.
That's fine. In the future, let's just try to make sure we include the calculations in the packet.
Okay, any other questions for Joel?
Chairman Moxley, I was just gonna say that, on the drawing that you've seen in front of you, the red box on the north side there, that looks like it's only taking up about half of that parking lot. The rest of that is all paved, parking marked as well. We didn't need that many for our use, so we boxed the 2 areas that were satisfied, so
Have an
we have adequate,
overflow if you ever need it.
yes.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions for Joel? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
I'd like to entertain a motion for a public hearing.
So move.
Support.
Moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Anybody in the audience would like to come up and give us your thoughts and opinions? Anybody online, Nick?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Support.
Moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
Yeah, I thought maybe Alan got Smoky Bear and.
Well, it was to close the hearing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He's saving his breath because he's.
Okay, any other thoughts by commission members?
I'll go first. I just feel, I don't know. I feel compared to our normal I have empathy for the applicant. He's operated for 18 years across the street, so I'm assuming there'd be no issue. But I feel personally, I probably would say no to this simply because I don't see any dimensions anywhere. I don't see any calculations anywhere. I don't see that this actually matches what the fire department asked for. It may, he says it does, but just, it seems like a very incomplete packet. And I don't know necessarily why.
Should we
I
table
would-
it and bring it
I
to the
would,
next
I
meeting?
would recommend table.
Then make the motion.
Let me find the case number.
243868.
I make a motion to table case number 243868 until which time they can bring back, dimensional drawings, typical with a site plan review along with parking space calculations and the usual fanfare, similar to what the case before this had.
Can I hear support?
I'll support his motion.
Motion made and supported. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-1.
6-1. No,
5-1.
5-1, my bad. So we'll do that in the December meeting.
We don't have a December meeting.
Can we schedule one for December?
Okay.
I think that would be appropriate. We don't need to make him
Thank
wait.
you.
Yeah, we don't want to make.
I don't want to make him wait till January. That's not
Correct.
fair.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Joel. Okay, moving on. Case number 243866. Bruce Wright. For Shaggy Pines Dog Park at 3895 Cherry Lane. Andrea, is this yours? Danielle?
Thank you. Excuse me. The applicant, Bruce Wright, Shaggy Pines Dog Park located at 3895 Cherry Lane Avenue, is seeking for a type 2 special land use permit for a private outdoor recreation use as listed in section 7041 to operate a private outdoor recreation park located at 3895 Cherry Lane. The existing site is zoned ARC, Agricultural Rural Conservation. The site is shy of 20 acres, 19.8 acres in size. The site is located on the west side of Cherry Lane, south of 36th Street, just south of the Quail Ridge Golf Course and east of Buttrick. The existing land use includes a previously approved dog park, which is private membership required with a current special land use approval. An existing structure on the site, which was a former residential home, is currently utilized as a member clubhouse and has been renovated to be utilized as a member clubhouse. All adjacent properties to the north, south, east, and west are all also zoned ARC, either vacant or improved with a residential home. Now, with regard to property history, it should be noted that the applicant has received approval to operate said dog park per membership only, approved by special land use on February 12th of 2003. With two conditions. The first of which that the existing trees of the site shall remain for screening, and the second with that lighting shall be downcast. It should be noted that the current zoning ordinance does not permit dog parks as a special land use or a permitted use in the ARC district. A staff review letter dated January 21st of 2003 note that the special use permit at the time was administered for a dog park under the requirements for kennels. However, with this new application that came in with more investigation into what the applicant was asking for, staff at the time have associated this request with a private outdoor recreation use, which is more closely aligned with what is actually going on site versus a kennel. And specifically, a dog park is not listed as a special land use in the zoning ordinance at all. The site is currently improved with an existing clubhouse, which is located in a structure that was constructed in approximately 1978. The site also was improved with a swimming pond for dogs and internal walking trails. It should also be noted that there were several complaints that were filed with regard to barking dogs back in 2003 and 2004. However, those have since been rectified, and the township has not received complaints in more recent years that we know of with regard to the operations located on site. So the applicant is intending or is requesting to obtain a special land use permit for private outdoor recreation to improve the site within a new 80 by 80 or 6,400 square foot building intended for the indoor storage of dog park maintenance equipment and associated materials. The proposed building will also include an indoor dog training facility where training sessions may occur during winter months and days of inclement weather. According to the applicant, the dog park is open daily from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. and the indoor training facility is proposed to be open 1 to 2 days a week from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. It should also be noted that the applicant is also requesting approval for the alteration of the existing former residential home, now utilized as the member clubhouse, to convert a portion of that building into a living space for on-site maintenance and grounds management. However, staff have interpreted this request as more akin to an accessory dwelling, given that the primary use or the principal use on site is a dog park, with then this new potential 6,400 square foot building to be the principal building that is associated with the principal use. So therefore, we would request that the Planning Commission shall determine whether or not this accessory residential can be permitted, pertaining or given the nature of the request. The rest of this review is in regard to the 6,400 square foot principal building. The front yard setback is 35 feet. The proposed setback is roughly around 560 feet. Side yard setback requirement is 10 feet on one side, 20 feet total. The request includes 132 feet just alone on the south. Rear setback is 25 feet. The requested conditions are roughly around 670 feet. Minimum building height is 7.5 feet for floor to ceiling. Proposed standard is 26 feet. It should also be noted that the current zoning ordinance does not include setback requirements or maximum height requirements for structures intended for non-residential uses. So because of that, staff weighed this application against what we do have, which is intended for residential structures, but because there's nothing for non-residential, that's kind of where you see this before you in this way. Section 1706 discusses the criteria for special land use approval standards. At this time, it should be noted that the applicant is not intending to increase the intensity of what they're trying or of what it is already occurring on site. And it does appear, at least per some online research that I did, that there are currently classes already being offered and training sessions already being offered on site. So this application is intended to essentially just get this private outdoor recreation use better aligned with the zoning ordinance, as well as to potentially authorize the construction of the 6,400 square foot pole barn type or pole barn-esque building, which will house the principal uses on site. Any questions?
Yes, I have one question. Can you point out on the plan exactly where the 6,400 square foot building will be?
So let me pull it up here. It's located on the south side of the property, just let's see, east of the existing parking lot, and there's like a fenced in area there. There is a site plan in your packet on page 66 of the PDF, which includes the 80 by 80 square there.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Other questions for Danielle? Ryan?
So it sounds like you're recommending the extra accessory building, the 80 by 80 square that you just described. But it doesn't seem like you address the approval or denial of an ADU. I'm
That's
wondering,
correct.
is that purposeful or?
Yeah, yes, mostly for the fact that, number one, the ordinance, of course, like the intent of the zoning ordinance and the way that it's been interpreted in the township to date and, moving forward, is that ADUs are not permitted in the township. However, we, just wanted to kind of be transparent about that and leave it up to the planning commission to also arrive at the same conclusion or perhaps a different conclusion per discussions. But that was, I kind of wanted to just lay out findings of fact with regard to that rather than having a specific recommendation. That makes sense.
Sort of, but if we were to decompose this, they're asking for, is it three things essentially? Almost like a grandfathering that their use is grandfather, I can't think of a better word. Acceptable, that they want to build an accessory building, and then they want to essentially develop or implement an ADU. So there's really kind of three prongs in your determination or recommendation was one of the three prongs. Is that correct?
I mean, not necessarily. So the way that this
So
was
can you-
interpreted.
So can you give me the other two prongs?
Yes. So the way that this was interpreted in 2003 was based under the review under a kennel. But when we got this review that came across our desk and within the last couple of weeks, that we were like, this isn't really a kennel, nor does it meet the definition of a kennel per the zoning ordinance. So the first of which would be the first special land use type 2 would be for a private outdoor recreation. So that's the first prong. The second prong of which would be the approval or site plan approval for the construction of an 80 by 80 principal structure, which would then be the indoor training facility and so forth. And the third of which would be potentially authorizing that accessory structure to be utilized as a dwelling. It's a little bit complicated because the existing structure was once a home and has now been renovated as not to be a home. So that structure will likely exist regardless. So I suppose at that point, if the commission says, no, we don't support or approve this building to be renovated to be utilized as a dwelling unit, then this might change a little bit because the 80 by 80 building, because then there would be two buildings, right, that would be associated with this particular use rather than one.
Correct. And then I guess the next question is which of those three prongs are we being asked? Is there enough parking?
So the parking, and I didn't include a full parking analysis through this, largely due to the reason that parking has not been a complaint and it has not been a level of concern for anyone at the township, or we haven't received calls about it. It's been an operating business for over 20 years now. So, given that fact, because this 80 by 80 structure is not intended to increase the intensity of the number of people that already attend this business, that we felt that the existing conditions are likely appropriate. However, if the planning commission feels differently about that, then you can just determine that.
Well, the only reason I ask is that's one of the three things you highlight, if the existing parking is adequate. So you've opened that can of worms kind of, and I'm wondering why.
Well, because it is a consideration regardless, due to site plan review, but at this time, staff did not find or determine that parking would likely be, that a new standard would likely be triggered as a result of the construction of this new building.
One last one, I'm monopolizing, but I get the feeling of this is like a wormies kind of type thing. This is kind of not exactly what the zoning is highlighted for. Has there been any thought on asking like for a rezone or splitting this into 3 requests?
I think that I may have spoke to Mr. Wright, who's the applicant, since Daniel's there on vacation. I want to be very clear. We wanted to bring up the accessory dwelling unit aspect of this because we're having conversations. The applicant is not asking you to approve that tonight. Open up to the conversation, but when you look at 2 prongs, it's, is this better defined per our ordinance in the way that Danielle has done the staff review versus approving a dog park as an allowed use in the ARC when our ordinance doesn't say that a dog park is a special use. That's, kind of one thing. It doesn't say that dog parks are allowed. So when this was approved originally, what it should have probably said is the planning commission should determine that this use, as approved in 2003, is consistent or similar to an allowed use that is in the ARC. To which when Danielle did the review, she found that Danielle, you can speak to it, that the outdoor recreation use in the way that it operates is closer to the way that this dog park functions than a kennel. So that's 1. And then 2 is this building associated with that use appropriate for this site. I don't know if that makes it any clearer, but it was thought through based on what was previously approved.
Scott. Thank you. I'm gonna try and be as polite here as I can. Been sitting up here for about 10 years, and in cases like this that happen in recent history, and I've said this before, I think it is very important for the planning commission to see the minutes of the meeting at the last time the use was approved, because that would really help put into perspective what we're looking at. Because sometimes they've already addressed some of the concerns that we're now talking about, and it's nice to hear the background on that. So I ask for this a lot, but to have that in the packet is really helpful so that we can be a little more prepared when we come. The other thing I was going to say is And I understand now based on Andrea's comments, the ADU is not the primary focus of this. But it would be nice to note if we have any other situations in the township where we have allowed an accessory dwelling unit in as a secondary use to something in the ARC district. I don't believe we do,
No,
but I think that's noteworthy to bring into the discussion for that.
Alan?
Yeah, so Danielle, the former home or dwelling, it's not a home anymore. What are we classifying that as? Is that an accessory building? Is that I mean, what's the classification of that building?
a clubhouse associated with the dog.
Yeah, so the existing structure of the clubhouse functions currently as the principal structure on the site.
Okay, so that doesn't count as an accessory building in itself. They still have the accessory building availability because that is a clubhouse.
I don't know if I follow that.
So you can't, like, two accessory buildings, is it classified as,
If it's not a residence, it's an accessory.
well, that's kind of what I thought, but that's why I wanted clarification.
Say it's the primary building associated with that use.
Okay.
This is a hard thing. We don't
Yeah.
have,
It's more of an art.
yeah.
Chris?
Yeah, I'm just asking.
I concur wholeheartedly with Scott that without the minutes, this is incomplete and we cannot adequately address what should be used. And with that, I'm going to make a motion that this is tabled to the December meeting.
I support.
Motion made and supported. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I think I would like to see this decoupled, get instead of putting it all together as one package, bring it to us a couple separate, like this accelerated dwelling
Yes.
unit and
Yeah.
Yes,
put that off on a different.
Yeah, I'll amend my motion to table for the minutes and also to decouple this. I concur with trustee Hemming.
all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
I apologize to the applicant if you are here.
Can I ask, I think it would be appropriate to at least hold the public hearing on this and hear what the public has to say about it. If there are people here, there may not be anybody here that wants to speak about it, but if they came to this meeting for the public hearing and it's scheduled,
I'm not
I think
opposed to
that portion should still
I would-
occur.
I would suggest we have that when they have the same information we have. Let's,
Well, we can do it then too, but if there's somebody here that might not be
Yeah.
able to make the next meeting, I think it's appropriate to give them that opportunity. So I'd make a motion to go to public hearing on that case.
Would you want the applicant to have a little time as well? I'm just asking.
That's up to the chair. If the chair would like to do that, I'm open to that. I have no
but
problem.
again, we're gonna decouple this and break it into pieces, so we're getting commentary on a vast, it just.
But if
seems
people are
odd.
here to-
Yeah.
I-
If they're here to make the comment, let them make the comment.
Yeah,
Can't hurt.
I'm all right. with that.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask Mr. Wright to come forward first,
Thank you.
as long as you're here.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. My name is Bruce Wright, speaking on behalf of 3895 Cherry Lane. I appreciate your patience. I thought this was going to be a simple thing a couple months ago, and it turned out not to
We
be.
never have simple things here.
And then, but I do appreciate Andrea and Danielle online. They've been great, but it seems like it's a little bit outside the norm. So we bought Shaggy Pine, which, as they said, was an existing business for the last 20 years. And we bought it, we looked back through
Very
the
recently.
6 months ago, right? Great place. When we went through it with the Realtor and everything, when we were doing our due diligence, we saw that it was approved under a special use permit 20 years ago. So we didn't believe there was any issues with that. So our initial application, if you will, was just for the new building. And that was really because it's been done for 20 years on a shoestring a little bit in this little former berm house. And dogs work best if they've got a little bit of space. So we don't want training going on when you've got people grooming and your receptionist trying to check in a new applicant. So we're just doing a little bit of space and to get our equipment. I mean, it's not complicated, but it's mowers, it's a couple tractors, golf carts, that type of thing, get those in out of the weather. So that's the original application we put forward. It got complicated with is this thing zoned correctly? And from my reading of those 20-year-old notes, no one ever thought it was a kennel, but that was the closest thing they had to it. So they said, hey, it more or less is like a kennel. We'll approve it under this special use thing, which is what we do kennels under. So we're right or wrong, 20 years ago, that's what they thought. So that's where we're at. We want to keep the dog park. It's terrific. Members there love it.
How many members do you have?
About 250.
Okay.
Zealous. They love it. Dog, some people like dogs, and then there's dog people. These are dog people, so they need the park, and we're happy to have it.
Facility.
What's that?
It's a beautiful facility.
It really is. It's, when we bought it, we met some of these people. We said it'd be a shame if this got developed for something else. So we really wanted to keep it a pristine dog park there in the middle of Ada. And that's the goal, but we want to do it right. So we want to have room to do the training and the grooming and things like that. So that was a permit. The other piece of it, which I hear you, maybe there's not a precedent for, we just want to revert the former berm house back to a single family use. Really, it's for our kids. The one kid wants to be involved with the dog park, and he would be kind of on-site management of it. That's the extent of the residence. It's not going to be a VRBO or anything like that. We're just going to put a small apartment in there once the business is moved into the new building. So that's the gist of it. I get, you hit it exactly. To me, it's three things, but they all seem like they're fairly reasonable. I don't know if they come forward as three things or whether it's best to come forward as three separate things. That's for you and the planning group to decide, but that's the gist of it. We think it could be a really terrific feature for the community going forward.
Brian?
How dependent are they? Is it a three-legged stool? Because the ADU, I think, if you watched our minutes from the last meeting, ADUs were shot down. I just,
And that is
historically, I feel like you're just letting you know, I feel like you're swimming upstream. Like, I'm very supportive of the other two prongs. I think it sounds like you should be grandfathered. And I think we should figure out the success. This is just one person speaking.
And help me out. The ADU is accessory dwelling unit.
I think you can either be a dog park or you can be a principal residence, but you can't be a dog park with a principal residence.
Unless they split a lot.
Yes,
You could split.
you're gonna have to
property
do
off.
something creative.
house separate.
Just throwing that out there. I don't know. The other guys can shake their heads.
Yeah, it's kind of important to us. I hate to go through that, but if we had to go through that, I'd have to look into it and figure out how to do it.
Sure.
Now you're taking the existing house that is there now and basically taking that garage portion of it to make it into a residence, but keeping the dog washing area.
No,
Reception desk.
yeah, everything would move. All the dog related stuff would go to the new building.
Okay.
So that the remainder of that would just be open. It's somewhat residential style now. Some of the pictures in there show it.
So that's why your business is growing. You're transferring the business to a different entity so the house can go back to being.
Exactly. So
Okay.
to be quite honest, that was the original impetus for doing that. I think it makes a lot of sense. If we had to seek out some sort of a split on it to make that happen, I guess we could do that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna give you two pieces of friendly feedback. Technically, it's Cascade, not Ada, right?
Thank you.
Kind of a big distinction, okay?
Appreciate that.
Yeah, otherwise you're in the wrong meeting, right? And I agree with member Brunel. I mean, that the dwelling, I'm gonna have a problem with that. So the other two, I think I can. be okay
Would you have a problem with that?
No, I mean, I don't, it's either a business or it's a,
That's what I'm saying. There's a lot
Business.
split. One's a business, one's the. Well,
I'd have to
see, I'd have to think about that
just,
one.
just to explain how every, like, I think we approved one accessory unit, one accessory building earlier in the meeting. Our fundamental, it's a blueprint. Every time we approve one, it cannot be used for a business, which yours essentially is. And it can't be used for a dwelling. And you're wanting to do both, and it's
But
just,
we're doing them in separate buildings, but I take your point, but
it's, yeah, it would.
the one would be the
Same
business,
parcel.
the other would be.
It's
the
on the same
property.
We recently approved a fence in one case and didn't in another, and now it's tangled in lawsuits, and it's just, we've learned to treat everyone equivalently and fairly the same, and to make an exception, we would end up reporting the Army. It's go to the boards.
I think I think that the accessory dwelling unit component is gonna be a hurdle here, obviously from the feedback you're hearing. And I think the easiest way to navigate that is to talk with the planning department about potentially having a separate piece of property where you put the dwelling unit. Because then it's not treated as part of the dog park necessarily. It's a separate piece, and splits are done by staff, not by the planning commission.
But then you couldn't use that building for anything with the business either.
That lot. Well, we wouldn't be
That's what
using
he's
it for
trying to
anything,
do.
we wouldn't
essentially.
be.
That's why it makes sense for it to just be a.
That piece is easy. We don't plan to do that. I mean, this isn't a forum from edification for me, but it seems like if you did that, then that area that was split off as part of the ADU or its own
The residents.
residence now
Residents now.
wouldn't be able to be used for the park, right? And it's
Correct.
kind of in the center of the park. So that would be the challenge
Right,
there.
you'd be building
Part
a
of it.
house.
You see,
That's
the middle.
that's the.
we
that's
can't allow
fine.
people to live in their businesses, right? We just, we
No, we
can't,
don't.
and that's what, I know, but if we do that with you, and it's obviously a special circumstance, we're opening the gates.
It
So we
violates the
just,
whole point, kind of violates the whole point of zoning, right?
All right.
Kind of
Yeah.
Implementing a zoning plan, just constructive feedback, something to think about, because if we do split it and it is a three-legged stool, which it sounds like in your mind it is, it's tipping over, right? So you need to come up with a solid third leg.
Scott.
Mr. Chair, given the hour, I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing, and I thank you for your
Yeah.
time, sir.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
gentlemen. Appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Motion made and supported to go to public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to come up and
We have to vote.
We gotta vote.
give us your comment?
All in favor?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes to go to public hearing. Anybody in the audience like to come forward? Anybody online, Nick? Nobody online.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion made and supported. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
We're running out of hearings. I'm just saying, we got a big audience.
I know.
We don't have a lot of items left.
And we've got 40 more pages to get through.
Okay,
Okay,
like to move on. Case number 243862. Applicant is Howie Hearer, JTB Homes. Andrea, is this yours?
So the case that's before us is 1701 Spalding. This was approved in 2017 for a rezoning with the PUD 97. Within your plans, you will see all of the minutes from these meetings. So when we say 40-something pages, I hope that you've all taken the time to read over all the minutes in the history of this property. This was a lot to unpack because after we started to unpack it, as you can see, we found that this was approved in 2017. However, pretty much, half of, if even half of what was required in the planned unit development actually came into fruition. So, this was adopted, supposed to be recorded, never recorded. There was a statement from the developer that was supposed to be signed on the planned unit development in 2016. It was never signed. There was supposed to be site condominium rules adopted for this. They were never adopted nor recorded. The final site plan, we have no evidence that it was ever submitted. So when you look at these complicated sites that we bring before you, like the ones that were before here, it's because every single time that we open up an old approval, we find that maybe what was approved isn't in line with our ordinance. So I do want to note, that's why when we bring things to you, like in a potential accessory dwelling unit in an ARC, it's because we want to make sure that,
it's addressed.
yeah, it's addressed, that we talk about it, that it's noted, that it's in the minutes, that we can find it, years down the road, when all of a sudden we're looking at a site that, was supposed to be developed, sat vacant, for years, was clear cut, and then we have a situation where we have a vacant property with erosion issues and no real follow-up.
Ryan?
Is there an expiration for PUD? Like we've often talked about, someone comes in for a building permit and they have 1 year, and if they don't, it expires. I don't know we've ever had a PUD that was approved and then sat vacant for years and years. So is this technically
So-
expired? Is there a?
It was a rezoning that was approved. I don't see. I mean, I wouldn't have done it. I don't really know what to do with this. So I feel like the way that we presented this case to you My professional opinion is that moving forward with finding some kind of way to develop this as a single family residential, somewhat consistent with the original approval, with maybe some modifications that, would help, this to have some positive public uses, is the best way to go. That's kind of why I broke down what was in the planned unit development, what wasn't followed, and then made some specific recommendations that we should kind of go through methodically to figure out, is this appropriate, or do we have other recommendations? Obviously, we know we're gonna have a lot of public comment on this. I'd love to hear the public and get to a place where we can actually make some recommendations or, conditions that will move us forward with clear direction for our applicant.
Brian?
Can I say it a different way? So if they came back and said, we want to do exactly what was approved, like you say, the current, I don't know what page is this. Page 73, you have
263.
previously approved site plan, currently proposed site plan. If they were wanting to do the previously approved site plan verbatim, they could then, is what you're telling me, because it's not expired? The only reason they're before us is because they're wanting to make changes? I'm just trying to understand the baseline. If we say no, what happens, I guess is what I'm asking.
I would say that they, if an applicant came to the building department for one of these homes or for the drive, at this point, I would say, okay, well, I need this sign. I need you to do what you said you were going to do.
Yeah, this list of things needs to be completed.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do I think it's the best plan? No, it has a slide going down a 33-foot gradient going down a hill.
It's been, 2017,
7 years.
I mean, there's no way that this can't be expired.
And the developer.
Well, they did-
Business anymore that's submitted this.
They did the first two homes, correct? We're done, the ones that are bordered up by Kentwood. There were two parcels originally with us that were.
That was not part, so when they actually did the original approval in 2017, they left out two parcels that were not part of that planned unit development. Those remain their ARC zoning designation and were sold, parceled off, and I think that
If that's the
one of
case,
ones-
if that's the case, then the old PUD died when there was nothing done for the first, I mean, that's why generally people have to come for a reapproval.
And we've had it before where if they haven't had any work done in a year, then they have to come back to get approval. I know.
We
I've
just
seen
had
that.
one of those recently.
Yeah.
yeah,
I know I've seen that.
Timmy?
My understanding is that it was the builder that came in with this site plan and he's no longer in business.
No, the builder, the builder did come through with this site plan. The property owner was never requested to sign this document. I'm not gonna sit here and speak about the relationship between the builder and the property owner and approval from 2000.
Who submitted the site plan in 2017?
I
The
don't remember
owner or
name,
the
but
developer?
it would be the person, the
Ed,
developer,
you
who
know
wasn't
him,
the
Ed.
property owner.
The developer who was not the property owner and is now out of business.
I don't know the status of the previous developer. That's probably a good assumption. But the developer from the 2017 plan isn't the applicant today, so.
Well, until we have the facts, I'm gonna say that this 17 site plan is dead.
I agree.
I agree. And we need to have a new site plan submitted.
And that's what's before you.
I don't
And
like
it's
this
spelled
one.
into-
I said, I don't like this particular site plan.
Would you come forward, please? Give us your name and address.
We're gonna open the public.
Oh, is it too early?
We're ready to. Let's have the app.
Are you the
Applicant?
representative of the owner?
No,
What are you?
I just wanted to fill in the question. So I'm in the neighborhood. I'm HOA resident in the neighborhood in Abbeydale Estates.
We're not ready.
We're not ready for a public
Yeah,
hearing.
we'll get
I
to you.
just wanted to, the previous builder was Greystone.
No.
Just want to provide that information.
We will, we'll get you. But yeah, we just want is the applicant. I think I'd like to hear the applicant.
Yeah. We should do that first. That's.
We have an applicant.
Yep.
Come on up. Hello. Hello, give us your name.
Howie here with JTB Homes. Thanks for seeing our case tonight and giving us a chance to bring it in front of you and get some feedback.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, so we are in a contract to buy this land right now. Our goal was to make some minor changes to the existing PUD, which we thought was in place and valid. And that's the path that we were down until we got to this meeting today. So I'd very much like to learn about the process that we should go down if we wanted to seek an approval of PUD. But the site plan that we do have in front of you today is representative of some changes to the existing PUD plan. Primarily because, and I'm gonna actually hand it off to Adam. I'm gonna start getting to engineering stuff and I'm not gonna explain it perfectly. He has 12 bullet points. But basically we just want to make some changes where we would give similar density, develop the same area, include a park, and also include some easements for cross access to some township and county owned properties, facilitate that, install a bridge. But mostly it's engineering based changes. So pass it off to Adam if you want to hear about them now.
Yes. Name and your company?
My name is Adam Feenstra with Feenstra and Associates. And yeah, the difference between the plans, we obviously have a little bit different street layout. We are bringing Abbeydale Drive to Spalding Avenue instead of having Abbeydale Drive head into a T intersection. And then instead of having two public cul-de-sacs, we have a single public cul-de-sac with a shared driveway. The shared driveway that we show will be constructed to the standard township requirements, 66-foot wide easement, pavement widths, all that. We have it shown as wholly contained within lot 33. And lot 33 actually has 67 feet of frontage on the public street. We did this so there is purposely a 6-inch gap on either side of the easement so that it's totally clear that the adjacent lots there don't have access to that shared drive. We wanted to make sure there is a very clear distinction and that there's very clear no access there. So we have that physical gap between the edge of the easement and their property. The original plans showed this as being constructed in 3 phases and we're proposing to do it in 2. The original plan had phase 1 going in, and then phase 2 was west of phase 1, and then phase 3 was finally making the connection to Spalding, which would have put a lot of construction traffic down Abbeydale, which we didn't feel was appropriate. So that's why we're doing phase 1. We'll have the Spalding connection so we can route all our construction traffic and home construction traffic right within development, not impact the neighbors.
Thank you.
The original plan had gravity sewer service to 16 of the lots with force mains connecting all the other lots to the public sewer. With the revisions that we've made to the layout and to the grading, we are going to have 28 of the lots served with a gravity lateral. A lot of those would need to pump a basement if they wanted to have a bathroom in the basement, but the main floor would all be gravity for 28 of the lots. In addition, with the public water and sewer, we are keeping them all within the public right of way instead of having easements down backyards and side yards. Grand Rapids, city of Grand Rapids tends to like easy to access facilities for maintenance purposes and without having to drive excavators 5 feet away from the side of someone's house. So we're happy to be able to keep that infrastructure in the right of way there. The original plan did have a walkway connection all the way to the west. As the planner mentioned, it was kind of down a 33% hill. I don't know exactly how you construct that except for a whole lot of steps. With the revised plan, we've kind of routed that down a different lot line and then around and utilize the detention basin area to put in a much more gradual slope. Quite frankly, there's no possible way to get that connection to meet the 5% ADA requirement. But this is a walkable, safe walkable slope, which is 100% better than what was originally approved. The stormwater specifications of the township have changed since the original approval. They're a little more strict. There's a few more extra requirements. We have double checked the original plans to the updated specifications, resized the detention basin appropriately. So we have no, we fully expect to meet the full requirements of the current stormwater ordinance. We kept the minimum lot size the same or larger. We kept the average lot size the same or larger. The revised street layout has less public right of way. The revised layout has 34 lots. And the original PUD plans had a note on there saying that the calculations indicated a maximum of 41 lots would be allowed for this site. The original approved PUD was 31 lots, so it is a slight increase, but we are still well under the maximum allowed for this site. Total open space has gone down slightly to 35.79% versus the required 25%. So we're still well in excess of the required, but it is slightly less than the original plan. We have taken the revised plan to the Kent County Road Commission and the Kent County Drain Commission. We've received informal / verbal approval that they'd be good with these plans. The Road Commission was happy to see one less cul-de-sac for them to maintain. The cul-de-sacs are always a pain to plow and everything, so they were happy with one fewer. We also talked about making some changes to how we connect to Spalding there to bring it more in line with their standard road cross section. So they were happy to see that too. The Drain Commission, they actually, we had a conversation with them, and what we need to get is a drain use permit, which is a very simple to get permit. They just look at the outfall from the basin, look at the calcs real quick and make sure that it kind of falls in line with what it should be. And since the Drain Commission and the township stormwater requirements are very similar, there won't be any issues there. We also have the Drain Commission look at the proposed bridge over the county drain, and they didn't see any issues with getting that permitted under the drain use permit as well. The township landscaping requirements are 2 street trees and 2 other trees for a minimum of 4 per lot. On the plan, we showed the 2 street trees. We did not show the other 2 trees. We're going to leave that up to the landscaper who puts in those, who comes in after the houses are built. But we will fully meet the requirements of the 4 trees there. In addition, with landscaping, we did want to create a privacy buffer between lots 32 and 34 and the lots to the south. So we are planning on constructing an evergreen tree buffer there to provide some screening for those lots. That's the sum of the major changes to the plan. I'm sure there are a few other little things here and there that I probably missed, but I think that covers the high points.
Questions for Adam? Brian?
I may have missed it, so I apologize. I'm probably asking you to repeat something you said, but can you, so the bulk of these streets meet the township street requirements, correct?
So the bulk of the streets are public and they meet the Kent County Road Commission requirements. The shared driveway.
So the X, so 30 lot 32, 33, and 34, you're terming that as shared driveway.
Yes.
And the county was happy to have a shared driveway for one less cul-de-sac, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's a private thing, so they don't have to maintain it, they don't have to plow it, so they were happy to see one less street that they have to, or one less cul-de-sac to send the snowplow down.
Any other questions, Chris?
Thank you, Chairman Moxley. This might be more for you. One thing that we look for with PUDs is a community benefit. Can you speak to the community benefit?
Well, since it was an existing PUD, what we tried to do is when we made these changes, we tried to add things on top of the existing PUD. One of the community benefits is obviously going to have 10 fewer customers that are going to have lip pumps in their basements. That's more on the individual
How does
homeowners.
that help the community?
Well, also, on top of that, we're also changing the path layout, which again, the original PUD, it's just shooting straight down a hill. So the routing of that behind the pond, that's a much more usable grade. We're also proposing installing a pedestrian bridge that would have public access. And there's an easement that runs along the county drain that connects an isolated township-owned parcel that's southwest of our parcel to a county park, or is MDOT that owns that to the north?
I'm not sure.
MDOT to the north, so installing that so that there's going to be pedestrian access between all.
And who will maintain that pedestrian bridge?
The pedestrian bridge would be publicly owned and maintained, would not be an association item.
So you would be giving us a
Bridge to maintain.
a bridge to maintain.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Scott?
These guys are a hard sell.
If you don't want the bridge, we'll happily not put it in. That'll save us some money.
My question is, well, and I understand that there's some water issues there, but what is the driver behind removing the existing path that was built to this spot? I mean,
Well, the current path runs down between an existing house and a vacant lot to the north. It's underwater a lot of the time. It's all beat up. It's just not a super great location. There's also an existing easement that the township holds along the western edge of the property. So a better routing would be down south that way and then north up to the drain.
I guess my question then maybe is to staff. That doesn't get us connected to this, to the Northeast Park in the city of Kentwood, correct? Because if I remember right, the reason that path was put there was so that the residents in the area could essentially gain sidewalk access to the park in Kentwood, which,
We own this property.
yes, I'm aware of that. If you go south and west a little bit, there's an actual park there that the neighborhood to the east, the theory was they could jump on the pathway. They'd go through this new path in this neighborhood that was never built. And then they could go down the path that was the path to nowhere right there. And that puts them on the sidewalk down to the park.
In theory, however, it was built in again, obviously, engineering wasn't really thoroughly thought through here because this.
No,
is flooded.
I don't disagree with you there, but I guess my question is, does it make sense to keep that? Maybe it needs to be raised a little or something so that it's, built to a proper standard, but to have that connection point? Or are you just comfortable with eliminating that completely and just having a bridge and a path between the two parcels
So
of swamp?
one of the staff recommendations that I wanted was, who's doing that?
That's me. I'm
Not
sorry.
a-
I was trying to move the screen.
Is, to actually.
That's where the path would
move
be.
that. I don't know that that's the best solution.
Right.
We really need to get engineering and Eric Thorne, our engineer, for those who don't know, and I are ready to throw our muck boots on. I don't think that we know for sure.
So
that the
Eric hasn't
proposed-
walked this? Has Eric reviewed
He has-
this?
We have been reviewing this. We've been out with the Parks Director, with Eric. Myself have been on site trying to figure out exactly where the best path is. It's not gonna come perfectly right now,
Why?
because we have not had thorough time to go running around
Got it.
through
So you
the
need more,
MDOT
you need more time.
property. Yes, but I think we need
Okay.
direction, and I think that tabling this at this point without listening to the public and getting direction from the planning commission would be non-productive.
Has anybody mentioned tabling? And I haven't heard that.
No,
Timmy?
just Making sure that that's.
On this path, our current pathways are taken care of by our Buildings and Grounds Department. They drive their pickup truck down them. They're like 8 feet wide. And the bridges are built to take that truck across. Is that how this path is being built?
No, this path would actually just be built for pedestrian access. So like, for example, along the entry road along Cascade, that would be like a township path that would be owned and maintained, to my understanding. 8 foot wide, plowable. But the sidewalks throughout the project, including the one going down towards the bridge, the conversation that we had on site with the planner, we talked about maintaining all of those as part of the association. The bridge wasn't discussed. And it wasn't something that we had planned on maintaining. I guess we'd be open to it. But again, we're just here because we're trying to do a PUD amendment. And that's where we started. So we're under contract to buy the property. And so we just want to understand what the process is to learn, one, what's currently in place for zoning, because the current owner and us, our understanding was it's entitled for 31 lots. And so if it's not, or if that's the position the township's going to take, then we'll have to know that so that we can figure out, because that's a big deal to the current owner and to us, we're going to close on the lane. So, and then the changes that we're going to make, we're supposed to be in reference to that plan. So rather than being an all or nothing thing, it was supposed to be it's just adjustments, changes and compared to the underlying approved PUD plan. I think we have to figure out, exactly where we are.
So I have questions. So this walking path, how long is that? How many feet long?
How long is it from like the cul-de-sac to the bridge or?
Well, all the way across, all the way over to where it's going here.
Well,
At the bridge, yeah, all the way to the Martin County drain. From your cul-de-sac all the way over.
County drain of the Kentwood line, just over 600 feet.
Okay, so you got 600 feet.
the path would be probably closer to 800 feet, because we got to wind around and get down the hills and
Okay.
follow the dike of the detention
So we
basin.
have
and-
800 feet of people walking their dogs and we've got to have some disposal bags along the way and somebody's got to go out and get them and clean them up. And that's usually our building and grounds department, but if they can't drive on this, that's a problem for us. The next one is, what if residents from surrounding little communities other than this one street want to use that path? Where are they parking?
Well, it's supposed to be interconnected to the township owned parcel to the south and then eventually to the park, the Kentwood Park in the northwest. Yeah, hope on the area there.
And back to my question of where are other people going to park?
It's supposed to be interconnected between the MDOT parcel to the north, which would have a parking lot eventually, and then the Kentwood Park to the south. But there wouldn't be parking, people wouldn't park in our neighborhood. It would be a pass through.
I think the intention would be for the north-south section of the path, or really anything west of the county drain would be built to whatever the township requirements would be, 8-foot bike path, able to support that pickup truck, so that the township can maintain it, sorry. And then everything east of the Mountain Peak County drain would fall under the maintenance and purview of the association.
Okay, thank you. And then you keep going back to this 2017 approval that had 31 lots. Now you're at 34 lots. And it looks like we're getting a hammerhead dead end street down there. You call it a driveway. And I think there's plenty of room there for a cul-de-sac. And if you make your cul-de-sacs, I don't know, 100 foot of pavement across, a dump truck can get in there and plow it, a road commission truck.
Yeah.
If you make the cul-de-sacs too small, yeah, the fire truck can't turn around, the road commission can't turn their trucks around in there, and they're just too small, they gotta back up. So I think there's a lot of things that have to be done here. Short of just saying start over, stop going back to the old one. But that's my opinion.
I just want to be clear,
I'd love to hear.
we're very amenable to a lot of suggestions, close to the original plan, maintenance of the path. This is all stuff that we're working on, just so you guys know.
I'd like to drive to some site that has that hammerhead. Do you know where I can drive into one of those?
Well, we pulled that out of the spec sheet as one of the options.
No, but where is one in real life?
Oh, I'm not sure. I'd have to get back to you. on
See,
that.
I don't want to be the first one to have it.
Oh, we've done them before. Actually, you know what
I've-
they are? In
I've done
Cascade?
dozens of them,
In
but
Cascade, you have them. I worked on that site plan at 60th and Thornapple. We didn't get to build the lots, but.
Public?
Laid that out. No, it's a
Okay.
private hammerhead.
I'm gonna save your time. I think he's backpedaling. I don't think this board is gonna approve that hammerhead. So I think the county might be glad there's one less turnaround or one less cul-de-sac, put the cul-de-sac back, because this board's not supportive of that. We're trying to get rid of these private streets because they're a nightmare. I live on a private street. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. So everything else he said, I agree with. When he was strong, don't backpedal. You've got to put the cul-de-sac.
Love to hear what people have.
So, Chairman Moxley, well, I'd like to think everybody that's in the audience is here to hear Scott and I say goodbye to the planning commission at the end of the evening. I suspect they're here to talk about this matter. I'd love to hear from the public and maybe pour the applicants up afterwards.
Yeah, I'd like to open a public hearing.
So I would make a motion to go to public hearing if that's acceptable
Support.
to the chair.
It's a second motion,
I feel like I was ahead of you.
Too bad. Instead of
Okay,
first.
motion go to public hearing. It's been supported. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are now open for public hearing. You're welcome to come up and give us your name, your address, and your opinion.
Hello, I'm Dan Lucard. I live at 1721 Spalding, which is directly off Spalding in front of this property.
Okay,
What their plan doesn't show is the pond that has been filled in with all the silt from this project that was started in 2018, abandoned for 4 years with nothing done. And the amount of silt that has come down that front hill is, yeah, you can see it in the one picture.
Yeah, right here.
That pretty much doesn't exist anymore. The amount of silt that is washed down that hill, and then they come back and they put grass mats right back on top of clay, which doesn't grow. And nothing's been done since 2018. So I would like to see some restitution done to that pond, as long as some of their other ponds or lots are also on ponds.
okay.
Without flipping back and forth between screens, 1721 on this drawing is the northernmost of that stack along Spalding.
It's right in the middle. It'd be right there. Yep.
Thank you.
And then, like I said, there's also existing wetlands that are proposed lots in their new setup too. So,
Okay, any other questions for Dan? Thank you.
all right, thanks.
Anybody else?
Actually, Dan, can I ask one more of you before we sit down? Sorry.
Yes.
So you want restitution on the wetland or the pond?
Yeah, just put it back to where it was before they,
Okay, what about any other comments on the number of lots, the streets, the access?
I just, 31, 34, they all kind of suck, but it is what it is.
Tell us what you really think.
Doesn't have to be.
It is what it is.
Doesn't have to be what it is.
Yeah, doesn't have to be. We just,
Well,
That's why we're
that's
listening.
kind of why we're here, I would like to see, that picture shows the erosion basically everywhere. The whole property is basically on a plateau with hills on both sides. And then as far as the path on the other side of the pond or the creek, I believe that used to all be muck fields. So I think the path's in the best spot it could be, and it floods now. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
thank you.
We have somebody that grew up. over
May I try again?
Yes.
there.
Okay.
Sorry, we just have a.
No,
procedure.
I
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm Ingrid Anastasio. I'm HOA president in Abbeydale. I know you, I think. We know each
Yeah,
other.
you do.
I'm a realtor as well, so I would like to say that because I embrace new development, we need more properties. So I'm not here to say, hey, let's not do it, because yes, we need homes. I have been involved in this process since, let's say, 2014 by representing the neighborhood. And that's why, sorry when I came up too early, but I have had conversations with the previous developer who owned the land, as well the builder who was looking into it back then. I was here in 2017. We have achieved, or at least in 2017, it was documented that we do not have, that the access directly to Spalding needs to be put in first to avoid construction traffic. It's my understanding that this is still the case, has not been changed. Also, I know from conversations with the road commission, that according to them, there were no further conversations since 2018. That's what I was told today in regards to that lot. I know that there were concerns in regards to drainage issues because two concerns. One, the drainage hitting Spalding because it's a steep slope, number one. And I'm just sharing this because some here mentioned that the PUD approval may have expired, which I don't know. The other one is the density of the neighborhood. It was agreed to 31. At some point about a year ago, it was shared with me that there will be bigger lots with fewer homes on because of certain restrictions. That was not the township who shared that with me. However, now we have found out basically by accident a couple of weeks ago when I called the township and asked, is there any development in regard to this just before the mailer went out, that not only are there 31 lots, but there are more. And that leads me to another real true concern. We do have a lot of traffic on Spalding, not huge, but a lot, especially rush hours. A couple of times I thought, man, I want a traffic light because I literally wait 5-7 minutes to get out of my neighborhood. Now connecting a new neighborhood to that, and I understand there will be luckily another entrance point, but it will, number one, increase the traffic. So I would encourage the board, whoever approves this, to look into a traffic impact study. If that has not been done, I asked for numbers today. I was told that the last one was done in 2023 on Spalding, and specifically that section. And it was at, I think, 10,300 cars over a 24-hour period. The maximum is 12,000, or recommended, I shouldn't say maximum. Maximum is 12,000 for a 2-lane road. So my concern is not the neighborhood. I like to sell more homes in Forest Hills. My concern is the density. My concern is drainage issues, which I had heard about before in 2017, when I had a lot of conversations with engineering and with the road commission. And I also had this week conversations, or last week, with the road commission. Just to understand, and this gentleman just addressed his pond. Yes, I drive by. I know there is no longer that pond because it's just like there's a lot of runoff. And I think traffic impact study, if it has not been done, I would highly recommend to have that done. I appreciate.
Brian,
I think you said you were the Abbeydale HOA president, but I'm not sure you gave your address for the record.
1921 Deerfield Court.
and your name again?
Ingrid Anastasio.
Ingrid.
1921 Deerfield Court Southeast.
I'm sorry?
I was just 1921 Deerfield Court Southeast.
Yes,
Just pulling you up on-
49546.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Any
Other
questions?
questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to come forward?
I'm Bill Boss, own Boss Greenhouse. The address is 1674 Spalding. The family had owned that piece of property from late 50s to 08 when Dad sold it. The muck is about 16 foot deep where the bike path is that exists there, so it's unstable. The reason I knew it was 600 feet because it was 20 irrigation pipes and they're 30 foot long, and I moved lots of them. The question is, when your PUD, the original one, the township didn't own the property they own now, so does that affect the density? Since they have less property, I don't know what your density is supposed to be. I know how you calculate it. You can use vacant land. But it's been years since I've been involved with the planning commission, so.
The parcel that the township owns was never part of this PUD.
Oh, it wasn't. Okay.
It might have been part of the same parcel prior to that.
Yeah.
As far as since 2014, it hasn't been part.
Oh, and then they separated back out because we had put it back together at one time. So, okay, thank you.
I got a question for you. So you played in this area as a kid.
Yeah,
At the end of this cul-de-sac that they're proposing. Was that all wetland?
no, it dropped off and went down to the county drain. It wasn't wet. We could farm on the east side of the creek. There was a little parcel, but it was a hill.
Okay.
And I haven't been back there. I know they excavated and moved stuff all around back there.
Okay, thank you.
And also, I suggested the township, I don't think MDOT's gonna make that into a park. That's one thing I suggested the township to approach MDOT. But they're in there building all kinds of stuff. Craig knows more about that than I do. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Anybody else? Name and address, please.
My name is Holly Hanson. I live at 1685 River Ridge Drive Southeast, and it's actually Kentwood. And I originally only came here out of curiosity because we live on the other side of all of this that's going on. But it piqued my interest when the gentleman came up and started talking about the walking path and it veering around. And now there's going to be possibly a bridge going over the creek into the northeast park. And my only concern is that it be considered that there is another neighborhood across the creek, that there is a park there with limited access to parking. And that if there were people that wouldn't be going in the new neighborhood to walk around, but they would be coming possibly into our neighborhood. I mean, everybody's welcome to come there. It's a public park, but there is limited parking there. And it's also people driving through this neighborhood in order to access the park. So that's my only concern and the only reason why I'm coming up here to say something. So,
Okay, any questions?
Thank you.
okay, thank you for your time.
Next.
Hello, my name's AJ Bashira. I'm at 4810 Cavalcade Drive. So when you guys look at the picture, I actually prepared something, but I can probably address a lot of this because I probably know more about this property than anybody because my house is the house right there with the fence. Yep. So right there, 4810, that's my address right there. My neighbors here as well. Our houses are separated by the path, right? So before I bought this home, I'm actually a new resident. I've been in the neighborhood for about a year now. So obviously I did a lot of due diligence, wanted to learn about the parcel, wanted to learn about everything. So to me, it's like, okay, what's going to happen? I got 2 daughters that are going to Meadowbrook, so I had a lot of interest, so I was actually to address kind of the path situation. I was at home one day and Melanie Mannion, previous parks director, came to my house. She wanted to walk all the property to figure out, hey, how can we get to this landlocked property? Apparently the developers reached out to her, hey, how can we get to this property? So when you see in there the proposed easement with the path running north and south of that Martin Peak Drainway, sounded like her plan because that property was earmarked for park. They wanted to find a way to get to that parcel because that was the only way, was through that property. Otherwise it just sits there, you guys can't use that. So she also was asking about our path. I mean, you can see it, if you go to page 112, 113 in the packet, it gives a good zoom, it gives a good view of that path. It goes between mine and my neighbor's driveway. We have a shared, like a private driveway. Melanie, she said this path should have never been built here in the first place. If you look at it, like Boss said, it's all wetlands and everything. It's all crumbling. It's never been maintained. So kind of a point of frustration for us because we've basically maintained our landscape around this path for the last 6 years. Obviously, I've only been there for a year, but the previous owners. So I know it's like I had something prepared before this, but you can kind of see there, it separates our houses. There's a blind corner. So it's actually, when someone mentioned why not keep the path, it's actually pretty dangerous path. Like if you come around the corner, some kids can be riding on their bike. You're probably going to hit somebody or they're going to run into you. So in all honesty, not only taking into account the wetlands, but the safety of the path. It's not a safe place to have a path. If you're being honest, you drive back to my driveway and you'll see that, but yeah, it should have never been here. So that's the big thing for us with if you approve this amendment, anything, what we want to see, if the planning commission does recommend to remove the path to its natural state, which we both agree with, We do want both yards. Basically, sorry, I'm getting lost because I'm trying to go off the cuff with the other stuff. It's not as simple as just removing grass, removing the path and putting in new grass, right? You gotta rip up the path. I mean, someone who knows landscaping, right? You got sprinkler heads you gotta move. There's so much that goes into account for removing this and making sure our houses and our yards naturally joined.
Topsoil in there.
Topsoil, actually, the person who bought my house, it was all sodded. So, I mean, you can plant grass, seed, and it may not even grow. So who knows how it would look?
I'm fairly new.
Sure.
So who built the path to nowhere? Like,
The previous owner or developer in 2018, when they split these paths off, or when they split the two parcels off, the developers agreed, or the planning commission agreed, when you split these two paths off, or the two parcels off, you have to develop this path, because they wanted to be able to connect that neighborhood to our neighborhood to be able to get the kids to Meadowbrook. Because it's like, hey, this is going to provide more value that the kids can get to Meadowbrook.
so is there an easement?
Yes, it's owned by, I think it's owned by Cascade One LLC, I believe.
The intent was for that path, when this neighborhood was built, the path was gonna go through and connect to the path along Spalding.
No, I get that, but so it's a path we own, we just don't currently maintain.
Right, because they never finished building. It was supposed to be connected to the pathway system, but it never got there.
So when you look at the minutes and everything, what it was saying is that it sounded like the owners or the developers at PUD were gonna have some sort of homeowners association who were gonna maintain the path. And my neighbor here, she actually spent money to clear cut the path herself, which I don't know how much that cost, but said it's people in our neighborhood were using it. She's like, oh, well, we like to use it. We go down it, but so she spent money to have it clear cut. And the owners of this PUD never once did anything to maintain it. So that's our concern, is when the time comes to approve this, we want to be a part of it. We want to be a part of maybe a pathway removement program or plan where we meet with the developers and come up with a plan that actually will make both of us happy to get rid of that and make it look like a natural yard again. And then my other concern is, if you look on page 74 of the packet, it's kind of funny because some of the other neighbors talked about the erosion and all this runoff. If you look at the 2018 overlay on page 74, you're going to see I used Access Kent measuring tool. It's about 4.65 acres of trees that were completely clear cut. And through their proposal, that would have been right there. Yeah, that one. So you can see in the top picture, right in the middle, that entire little bit of trees right there. It's about almost 5 acres of trees, completely clear cut. It's led to all sorts of erosion. And if you look at their proposal, that's for lots 21 through 25. So you're basically clear cutting 5 acres of mature trees for 5 lots, where the hammerhead is going to be. So to me, I'm concerned about that. I can see back, there were people who were concerned about the removal of so many trees. And it's alarming to me that in the 2017 September minutes, if you read about the trees being addressed, it says, and I quote, "Remind everyone they would have planted street trees, 2 trees." So you can see that's not going to take care of this erosion problem you're seeing through all of these, complaints. And even if you look on the east side where he talked about, they got rid of all those trees, which obviously has led to all that runoff. So it's been a big issue. And so, to me, like I said, being a new resident, the beauty and allure of Cascade is the natural landscape and the mature trees throughout the neighborhoods, not Ada, right? Cascade. And so, and I also saw in 2014, you guys had to create a whole new PUD from 2014 to 2017 because it was different. So to answer your questions, do we need to do a new PUD? I don't know, but I think maybe it's something to think about. Because to me, as much due diligence as I've done, I've looked at the 2024 master plan, the 2 goals to preserve and strengthen residential neighborhoods, number 1. Number 2, preserve open space and natural areas. If we take that into account in 2018, you don't clear cut 10 acres of trees. You don't do the things you did. So to me, I think we need to relook at it to have the developers, the new landowner, whoever, try to do what they can to return it to a more natural state. Obviously the removal of the path in a wetland area. So that, to me, that's why I'm excited. And I'm sorry if I'm taking a little longer. I'm trying to talk for me and the neighbor too. We got one more minute. I'm excited to improve on the original approved PUD because if we use the master plan now, we're gonna be able to return it back to a more natural state. And so basically what I'm asking you, the board, to do is to require increased landscape standards, especially more property, more on the lot lines of 21 through 24, and maybe even on the east side too, where all that other runoff was. And I didn't think about this until someone mentioned it, but where the hammerhead ends, they have a proposed playground in the east side. Maybe you put the little playground on the west side, consolidate some of those lots. I think there's probably too much density. And if I'm gonna be honest with you, the last thing I'll say is doing my due diligence. Now, I don't like to talk bad about people, but I looked up the owner of the property and I called him. And I said, hey, I'm looking to buy this property. What's gonna happen with this land next to me on the east side? And he goes, well, we've been approved for 31 lots, but I think we can get more, so we're gonna try to get more. So to me, because of that greed, we'd have to tear up a path that should have never been installed. You have 5 to 10 acres of trees that have never been removed. And there's, all these different things. So I do hope you guys take the new master plan into account, and I think there's just too much density. So.
Yes, Ryan.
So I hear you loud and clear
Yeah.
on 90% of it. Thank you for that. The point that, so I agree, the path to nowhere as exists.
Sure.
It's kind of mind numbing, but as proposed, it looks like it's gonna be a connectivity. It's gonna allow you to,
Ours
the
will
other
be
side to the
removed.
park.
Ours is supposed to be removed. The path from the Kentwood to the drainway, that should be removed. Is that the part you're talking about?
Yes, so it should be removed according to you, or why?
Well, not only
Right
according.
now it's useless,
So,
but if
right,
it
for
actually
safety
connected to
issues,
somewhere.
for
would it help
safety
you or-
issues.
Okay.
If you look at the planning department, they've also recommended to have it removed. It's going across a natural wetland area. It's not being maintained. Who's gonna maintain it? So like you said, if you want to also maintain a bridge and a 600-foot path, go ahead. But I mean, I'm not gonna maintain it. I don't have the easement. It hasn't been
Okay,
maintained in
that's
6
fine,
years.
that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm
No, I know,
not
I'm
trying to
just
poke the
saying.
bear.
Yeah,
But if
yeah,
it was
so-
maintained
right.
and it was quality and it wasn't underwater and it was maybe a raised boardwalk or something and provided you connectivity and it wasn't a path to nowhere.
I just don't think it's safe. No,
Excuse
I
me.
wouldn't support it.
Mr. Chair, this is not meant to be public conversation. It's meant to be public comment. There's a lot of people in the public that I think would like to address us, so
Need to move on.
Yeah,
think
no,
we should
that's
move
fine.
on, but I appreciate your
Of
comments
course,
very
yeah,
much.
of course, thank you.
Next,
Actually setting a 3-minute timer.
I've been keeping track of the time.
Mr. Krebs.
That's,
How you
See
doing?
you.
Congratulations, by the way.
name and
Both of you.
address, please.
Robert Cribbs, 1980 Deerfield Court. I'm in the neighborhood right next door. With all the things going on, I also was involved walking through that area and actually caught the owner on his Bobcat. And we were talking, and what his plans were, he says, yeah, we're gonna redo our whole plans. It's gonna be $1 million homes in here. We're gonna have a lot of green areas. We're gonna cut it down to maybe 18 to 20 homes. And all this area that's just all flooded now because it's all been clear cut, it is all gonna become greenery with trees and all that. The other thing he assured our neighborhood was that the road between Abbeydale and us would remain as a fire gate, just like they do at Tall Pines. And it's got to be a big concern because now with our second generation of kids moving into our area, we now have a line of cars waiting down at Spalding and Abbeydale to catch the bus in the morning. And if you have the two combined, that line of traffic, right now, sometimes you can only have one lane because parents in the winter park on both sides. And now as a bus driver, I can tell you that that's going to be a nightmare trying to handle all the traffic coming from that neighborhood and our neighborhood with all the kids going to be there. So that's one other thing that to be very concerned about is keeping that gate there. And also as Ingrid brought up, the traffic, you need to really look at it because there has been some times where even the bus pulls in to drop off kids, sometimes has to wait 4 or 5 minutes before they can get back out on Spalding and go down to the next stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Robert. Next,
Barbara Levenger, 5101 Abbeydale Drive. I welcome homes. No one wants to, well, maybe some people want it to maintain with nothing built on it, and that's not my viewpoint. But I think this is too dense, and I really support a traffic study. I tell people where I live, and I've lived in different places in Cascade, and they're like Spalding, and someone that used to live in Quail Crest, and she said, if I knew about this, and I still would live there, but I drive that, there's a lot of traffic on Spalding. And some areas, I also have a place in Grand Haven, and I kind of wish that there would have been a notice at where the new road would be on Spalding, that there was going to be a public hearing, because I don't think a lot of residents of Cascade know about the revision, or the development. And I think it affects a lot of us. Does it affect me because I live on Abbydale Drive? Oh, definitely. But that Spalding traffic and affects a lot. But I have questions, and I apologize because I didn't, there wasn't knowledge. I did get a letter because I live so many feet from it, but I wish our entire neighborhood and on the other side across from Spalding would have known about it, because just yesterday, they're hearing about it now. But our lot sizes and width, and you can look into averages, but we have 120 to 200 feet on a street frontage. And I'm seeing the 82 and, much narrower, smaller lots. They can average, because of those few large ones, to be similar in size to Abbydale Estates. Abbydale Estates, the range isn't that much. We don't have 2 and 3 acre lots on there. So I don't know the setback for the driveway either. I could ask, I just think with narrower lots and more traffic, and I don't know this, but if the setback, the front yard setback is smaller, that could result in more parking on the street because of the length. You can only get 1 or 2 car lengths, and I don't have an answer to that. We can have a few, deep in our driveways. And the way it's set up now, the Abbydale Drive will become just more of a thoroughfare. So the drainage is an issue for me too. I think when some of this was being cleared, the water drainage, not on Spalding, was the worst, but I think it impacted a few of our yards that are right next to it with water coming down. So please look at the density. I think this should be looked at again. And I missed what the home sizes are. So is there a minimum? A lot of times in a development, you'll have a ranch is so many square feet and a 2-story. So I don't know that it's really comparable to our existing neighborhood, but it definitely will appear as though it's an expansion. So please consider the width of the lots, et cetera.
Okay, thank you, Barb.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next.
Hi, I'm Tammy Doolittle, 5095 Abbydale Drive. So I live right next to Barbara, actually. As I looked at this, all these notes, it keeps referencing the prior POD. It's only slightly different. It's only slightly different. Well, the first one was only slightly different from the one before. So if we keep lowering the standard by only being slightly different, we're not who we used to be. And I think we're better than that. So traffic is an issue. Everybody said it. I don't need to reiterate. I appreciate what you do. I'm sorry you are heading into something that somebody else left you a mess. But thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next.
Better hurry. And if you've been cut off like 3 times.
Hi, I'm Chris Van Clausen. I live at 1850 Tall Pines, which is the property that runs kind of half of the south property line of this site. And when I got the notice, I was surprised, number one, because the previous developer at least talked to us and we had some feeling what was going to occur. And I'm wondering a little bit, why does the developer get another bite at the apple?
They don't necessarily.
Right. Yeah. Well, they have the opportunity. And when I look at this, so originally the design was supposed to mimic Abbydale a little bit, which is why you saw the cul-de-sacs. I think the way the design was, it calmed traffic, particularly as it connects from Abbydale to Spalding. But what they're getting is they're putting roughly 400 less road in, 1 less cul-de-sac, which they talked about, which is a lot less money. They don't have to do lift pumps.
3 extra homes.
Right. And more homes.
they've encroached on the wetlands. I can tell you from the previous, the pond that looks like chocolate milk on the south side is also half filled in. So whoever buys it is going to get a letter from Eagle when the time comes, when they actually get an approval. And the township gets a path that had to go in anyway. I understand that it was a poor design, but the path had to go in. There was going to have to be a bridge no matter what to go over the drain. The playground location, I would hope that gets vetted out because that's probably the busiest part of the neighborhood. Probably not the best spot for that. And then I find it a little ironic that they're adding screening between their lots, but not between any of the lots that they're building next to. So I think if they're going to get more density, they're going to change this design, which I don't think is as good as the previous design. I think they need to do more for the neighborhood, whether that means screening. At least we had a promise, well, what it's worth from Dave Barker, the previous developer. He wasn't going to touch any more of the trees he already cut down, which was a shame. But the new development is also going to infringe on more trees that get cut down, which is a shame. So I just don't think this is well thought out. I feel like this is basically trying to slam in as many lots as they can and try to make the economics work.
Any
That's all.
questions for Chris? Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Next.
Hi, Trevor Mock, 1948 Deerfield Court. Live next to Rob. It's not as bad as it sounds. Welcome, man. Yeah, I don't want to belabor the point, so I'll be brief. The density is a concern. One thing that they've brought up is if we connect Abbeydale there with the rest of the neighborhood, that not only brings a lot more traffic, we don't have sidewalks in our neighborhood. So in particular, in fall and spring, most families walk their young children to the bus stop. And this is during rush hour. So if you're doubling or more than doubling the amount of housing stock, I mean, there's a lot of that traffic. Yes, there's a way to Spalding, which is good, an alternate way, but my concern would be getting rid of that other cul-de-sac that, I mean, I remember being here in 2017 and they were talking about that cul-de-sac being there and staying there just north of Abbeydale, which I would think would be important as well. So density, cul-de-sac, and again, there's just no sidewalks.
I have a question.
Yes.
Nobody's head spin when I'm about to ask this. Do you have speed bumps on Abbeydale?
I don't think so. No.
I didn't think so, but I'm just thinking like, out loud, if you extend the length of, it generally accentuates the speed. Extending the length of a street, generally people are going to drive faster on that street. I was just wondering if you had speed bumps, so.
But it's just a place too.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. Anybody else? Come on up, name and address. Ladies first.
Hi, I'm Linda Gomison. I'm at 1889 Abbeydale Court. I also sit on the board with Ingrid, and the vice president of our HOA. And I just want to reiterate a lot of what folks from Abbeydale Estates has spoke forth on. Ingrid mentioned about the traffic. Many times throughout the day, it's very difficult to get out of the neighborhood. The traffic is really, a traffic study definitely needs to be done. There's just a ton of traffic. Also what Barb said, I didn't get a letter. I would have appreciated kind of having a heads up, prior to this meeting. It was thankfully Ingrid, because she's in real estate and, has connections and things like that. She was able to kind of give us heads up, but it would have been nice to, have a letter. So, yeah, I just want to kind of reiterate what folks in my neighborhood has mentioned. And then Robert mentioned about the gate that we have with Tall Pines. That would be something that I think we would also support taking a look at. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Linda.
Yep.
Andrea, haven't we talked about that before, extending the the distance of letters and whatnot?
I think one of the neighbors had mentioned that she has a house in Grand Haven and they actually just stick a sign out on the property. So if there's a.
But that's not his question. Did
Yeah,
we
like-
expand the
Yeah,
radius of
but we
letters that we're
haven't
sending out?
amended anything, and this is an industrial property. So if we want to amend the ordinance or,
The ordinance for
Then-
what? There's an
yes, there's a state law and our ordinance has requirements for how far we notice. If we want to notice to people within 1,000 feet, we can. If we want to, I mean.
We've given direction to staff.
I'd like to
more
put
than
that
one
on our
occasion.
agenda then coming up.
Yeah.
We've talked about this multiple times, so I'd like to put that on the agenda for us
If
to
we're
amend
gonna
that.
amend this ordinance, okay.
No, we've given direction to staff regardless of the, like, we've been very clear about our expectations. Sorry.
No, you're good. Address of the last person that spoke. What was her house number?
What was your house number?
Linda?
House number.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I'm sorry, what was your address?
1889
1889.
Abbeydale Court.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Name and address.
Scott Van Zalkema, 2570 Orange. I don't really have a dog in this fight, but obviously something needs to be done with the amount of the erosion. And I am also concerned about the amount of density of homes there. I was looking at JTB Homes website while I was sitting here. It looks like they have 41 neighborhoods around Western Michigan. Home prices starting anywhere from 390,000 to 650,000. Having been going to school board meetings, they claim there's a lack of affordable housing in Cascade. Now, obviously, these people are here to try to make money. That's the whole point of building homes. But if you have, just more $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 homes, then more people can't really afford it. Obviously, you can't dictate the price of these things. And obviously, they want to have enough homes to build. And it sounds like Abbeydale doesn't really want the street to connect to them. I don't know if there's a way that they could redesign this and maybe just have like a big circle of homes, like a drive-in, a big circle, have big green space in the center, and then no one's really behind everybody. And obviously you guys can't make them do that, but approval. I'd like to see maybe 25 homes max personally. And then that way they'd fit with the aesthetics of the next door Abbeydale neighborhood and or Watermark or wherever. But those are my, yeah, exactly. Just a big oval, like a racetrack sort of in the center, but all the people live there. Maybe, like I said, 25 homes, no one's living in someone's backyard where they have sort of that, where then you don't need that buffer and you don't have that hammerhead or whatever the hell, whatever you guys called it, that type of deal. So just my thought. And obviously if they can make it so it's a legit street as opposed to the private drive. I also live on a private drive. I don't really recommend it for most people. But that would also be good too. So those are just my thoughts.
Okay,
Thank you.
good thoughts. Thank you, Scott. Next victim. Anybody online?
Make a motion to close public hearing.
Support.
And Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
hi, over here, legal counsel. Just before you dive in, I did have some insight on the expiration that has been referenced a couple of times and wanted to direct the planning commission to section 16.08 subsection 2 of the zoning ordinance. If you're on the township's PDF of the zoning ordinance, it's PDF page 95 in the PUD Planned Unit Development District section. It says construction shall be commenced within 1 year following final approval of a planned unit development or within 1 year of any other necessary governmental approval for commencement of the project, whichever is later, provided all other necessary approvals have been actively pursued. If construction is not commenced within such time, approval of the final plan for the project shall expire. An extension for a specified period may be granted by the township board upon good cause shown if such request is made to the township board prior to the expiration of the initial period. Moreover, in the event a final plan has expired, the township board may rezone the property in any reasonable manner. If at the discretion of the township board, the property remains classified as planned unit development prior to the commencement of construction of a new application, prior to commencement of construction, a new application shall be required and shall be reviewed in light of the then prevailing conditions and applicable law and ordinance provisions. So I think what's been submitted, and I'll defer to staff, likely sort of follows the pattern of an original application, although it's titled a revision. But I did want to reference that because the question had been raised.
Was an extension ever given, or did they ever ask for an extension from two? Okay,
I could
Chairman
not
Moxley,
find
I
anything
didn't-
in the record.
I didn't think so either, but thank you.
Chris,
Lauren, could you please look at page 106
Sure thing.
of the packet?
Oh, of the packet or of the?
Of the packet,
Oh.
please. If you read, motion was made by member Spurlow to approve applicant's request for preliminary approval to rezone the PUD to allow for a 31 lot plat with the following conditions. 1, separate driveway and pedestrian sidewalk. 2, when the building permit is pulled for the 25th lot, the driveways and sidewalks will be constructed to Cal Bay Drive or no later than within 5 years of the start of the project, whichever comes first.
Mhm.
Would that provision essentially be an expiration date?
Well, they would need to have started construction within 1 year after approval,
date.
so I'm not sure. I mean, if you're talking about something
So-
that has to happen at the 25th lot, they never did the first lot.
So,
They never started any.
so that's my point. So,
It's double, like it's expired
Yeah.
for all access.
okay, thank you. Member Moxley. I'd like to make a motion to reject this revision.
Second,
we close public hearing.
I thought you did.
You did.
No, we made a motion, but I don't know that we voted on it.
Yeah,
Because
we have
you
a
spoke up, we
motion.
listened.
Do we have support?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Chris,
I'd like to make a motion to reject the revision for case number 243862.
Second,
motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Member-
opposed?
Member Moxley, if I could make a recommendation to the developer.
Please, yeah.
You have 3 people on this board who were just elected to the trustee. One of the things the 3 of us universally ran on were protecting our homeowners' values. You clearly are not doing this in this proposal, so I would strongly advocate and suggest that you speak to these neighbors and that you come back with something that will not only protect their land values, but also will maintain the aesthetics of the neighborhood that they've built, as well as take care of the homeowners where your properties cause damage. If you decide to buy it, if not, I would definitely encourage you to take my message and convey it to the current owner.
I think there was a lot of misunderstanding tonight, and we're going to start from ground 2.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay, we had a motion on the floor, rejected, supported. Did we all vote on it?
We did.
We did. We're good there.
All right. Okay,
You handled it very well with this match.
thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
thank you all for coming.
Let's move on to Article 12, public comment, right?
Anybody want to speak?
Anyone? Anyone?
I know we got a little bit more in the meeting and then we're.
You need to call for order because the meeting came back.
Yeah.
This meeting is still,
What's that?
excuse me, please take your discussions outside.
Sorry.
We've got to keep going here, so if
You
you
can
guys
go
want
out-
to
if
talk,
you
you
wanna
can go
talk,
outside and
go out
talk.
there.
It's just we got to have order in the room to continue.
Okay, we can now acknowledge visitors and those wishing to speak, 5 minutes or less.
Anybody have any public comments?
Any public comments? Anybody online? Thanks, Nick.
I'll briefly speak.
Scott?
I want to thank Mr. Rissy and Mr. Nordyke for your many years of service here on the Planning Commission. And I look forward to seeing you guys here at the Board of Trustees meetings. And I hope that they pick out really good chairs for you because that was on the agenda meeting. They weren't specified, but they are up to, I believe, I think they could spend up to $1,200 each. So they should be really nice.
Trustee Timmy will ensure that they're very comfortable chairs.
Did you guys get the chair? Did they pick the ones out?
You know, I've always liked these chairs, but I have to stay now that these meetings
might-
last almost 2 hours. They're a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, you might be able to take them home, but thank you both for your service. So that leaves some openings and I
In all seriousness, I think we, as a fellow commissioners, we had dinner tonight, first time, and they have 17 years combined between them. So
Wow.
that's great public service.
Nice.
So
Well- Yes, well, I'm glad they'll be moving on to the higher ups.
Office.
Yes, so, all right, that's it.
Thank you,
Okay,
Scott.
thanks, Scott.
Wait, we gotta have a motion to adjourn.
We're not done yet.
Still not done.
You're out of order. Thank
Article
you. But thank
13.
you. We'll take the congratulations anyway.
Article 13, any other business? Brian?
Nope, I'll defer. I've been monopolizing.
Yeah, I feel like I have too, but I want to address an elephant in the room. And I don't think I'm going to be very popular after this, but, here we go. There is a general, what I'm hearing, concern with the rewriting of our zoning. And I do not believe that this planning commission, aspires to rewrite our zoning, but wishes instead to fix maybe the 14 or 15 issues that are there. And I thought it might be helpful for staff if we did a straw poll or just a high level, quick vote, if you know, if those on the planning commission also feel that we don't need to rewrite all the zoning that Danielle's doing and just to fix a few items.
I thought I did that at the last meeting, but it wasn't in the minute.
No, that's why I'm gonna do it. Yeah, I'm gonna do it here. I'm not trying to make an action here as much as just give staff, you know, because you've got the planning commission and you have 3 trustees as of Wednesday to give you a sense of how we're feeling. So we're gonna do it right now at the planning commission. So if that's all right. Yeah.
Ryan?
A little bit of discussion on it.
Yep.
I would tend to agree primarily because I hate waste, especially wasting taxpayers' dollars, and I have empathy for Danielle. It seems like someone has tasked her, I don't know necessarily who. She put a lot of effort into an ADU and had, I think, 3 pages on ADUs, and we basically said, I'm interested in ADUs. And we axed it. To do that over and over again is just a waste of taxpayer dollars. We're obviously paying her a hefty salary and hours to do something. And if we're going to slash it before she even has a chance to present it, I think it's an insult to her, it's an insult to the taxpayers. So I'm supportive of what you're saying.
I mean,
I think we just need to fix a few things. We don't need to rewrite the entire process.
And I think Danielle is aware of that list of items. I believe Andrea is. I think Madison had a list that the previous planning director had worked on also. So I mean, there's a list of things that go back years that it was just kick the can further down the road. We'll get to it later as part of a large approval. And I think we should just start tackling that list item or 2 at a time and get through it. This idea of putting it all in a pretty package with a nice bow on it all at once is, I think we're tripping over, we're tripping over dollars to pick up dimes, you know, and we need to just focus on these items as they come, because some of them are quite simple.
Alan?
I guess my concern is, and I think Andrew's just following orders, right? And so my concern is who's giving the orders, right? And she's just doing what she's told, right? And whoever's telling her what to do without asking the board for direction, it's kind of reminiscent of a planner that we had here in Cascade not so many years ago that decided to go off the reservation and do his own thing. And so I just want to make sure that whoever she's getting direction from isn't doing the same thing. You know, I think they need to come to the board and ask us for direction. I think her job is to.
You're not the board.
The commission, planning commission. Then they can come to us and say, what do you guys want to do with this instead of going off the reservation? So
Can I ask for a show of hands for those who would prefer that we simply modify and make adjustments to the existing zoning ordinance as opposed to rewriting it? Vote on it. If you agree, please raise your hand. 6-0. Okay.
And I think as we run across some of these things, that we need to make the corrections to them too, like the hammerhead.
Absolutely.
Andrew
It's
Reeves-
always a rolling
It's
list.
gonna be something rolling that needs to be
Yeah.
corrected as we go through.
So- Mature businesses often have a cycle, right? So it would be nice if we got in a habit of quarterly doing an update. Accumulate some hammerhead. We have a running list and okay, this quarter, let's to amend constantly, I see it's not constructive, but if we could quarterly rather than kicking the can, it's 12 years later.
Right. We,
So does anybody really know what size houses were supposed to be in there? For a ranch or 2 stories?
2,200 is what it says in the zoning ordinance, or 2-story 1,800.
Did you guys?
it's the other way around, isn't it? 1,800 for single.
I didn't see
2,200
it
for Two?
in the PUD.
Of 1,800.
Oh,
for
okay.
Second for 2-story,
That's what-
2,200. It's in. It's in the.
Okay. Scott.
Lost my train of thought there for a second. I'm getting old. The, when you're talking about making changes, the planning commission used to create a work plan. Staff actually, I think, created the plan, planning commission approved it at the beginning of every year, typically, end of the year, it was either like in December or January.
Did we also
And the
review
work,
budgets?
the work plan used to have a list of 5 or 6 items. And generally, if we're gonna make changes to like the sign ordinance or something, it would be in that work plan as a goal for the planning commission to address that year. Which, again, typically this staff would create the amendment, they'd bring it to the planning commission. Planning commission would hear it, there'd be a hearing, we'd approve it, and then it'd go up to the township board. And that process worked really well to catch changes that needed to be made.
I just want to note that I just went to look for the overlay for Centennial Park overlay. It never got changed or amended. So when did that happen? 2022, 2023?
Centennial Park overlay?
The Centennial Park.
I wasn't
overlay.
around for that.
No, you were, it was an amendment to Centennial Park overlay, I believe in July 2023.
Oh, an amendment,
Yeah,
maybe.
that never got changed on the zoning ordinance. So I'm gonna be working on that. So the zoning ordinance still has incorrect information about the amendment to Centennial Park overlay. I also want to note that one of these other amendments, I have about 5 or 6 map zoning changes that were incrementally changed like that are not changed on your zoning map that's public right now. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, but so there's two sides to this, right? There's the side where things are approved up here, and then there's a side where staff needs to handle them. I'm sorry that you have to go back and fix mistakes that previous staff didn't handle properly. But, and if that means you have to bring stuff back to the planning commission to address it, then that's what's gonna have to happen. But we gotta fix these things. We can't just leave them hanging out there.
Is that maybe an argument to, it seems like we have so many things to fix that we don't have time to start from something from scratch. Like, is what we're suggesting maybe free some of your time to fix some of these
Actually,
danglers?
I'll free my time. I would like to introduce Ryan Sennett, our new zoning administrator. I don't know that he did that.
Please do.
This is Ryan, this is our planning commission.
Nice to meet you, Ryan. Welcome aboard.
Anything you'd like to say, Ryan?
Just want to introduce myself, so I'm excited to get started working with Andrea and everyone over there.
What was your last name?
Senate.
Senate?
Yes.
And where are you joining us from?
I was interning over Dave.
Okay. Do you live in Ada?
I do.
Do you live in Cascade?
Well, welcome aboard.
Regardless of where you live, welcome. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, can I ask a question? Now we have 2 members who have been elected to the Board of Trustees. And they start Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Wednesday at noon.
And we're talking about having a planning commission meeting in December. Can they still serve on planning commission?
No.
Or are they off?
They're off.
So we're gonna be down to
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Timmy's off on.
And then Rob.
Timmy's off on Wednesday also.
Yeah, depends
Okay.
on whether the board has made the new appointments by your
And
December.
hopefully
They haven't
Rob
yet.
Richardson will
But
be
his
back.
appointment doesn't stay until he's replaced?
No.
No?
I'm done at noon Wednesday.
Timmy goes to the home office with Scott and I.
Okay.
Wednesday.
So we're down to 4, Rob, myself, I, and.
Now,
Grace has to appoint a new board member to come on the planning commission.
Yep.
That shouldn't take long.
No, it's not in the.
We might be able to
Back up
amend
the
on
next
Wednesday to
meeting.
get that done.
So
Please do.
Yeah.
Because
Brian.
it should, but then that kind of the elephant in the room, you'd made some reference to not having planning commission meetings in December. Is that a new policy or procedure?
No, didn't have any items on.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we've got plenty of zoning items.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe that's when there's later months, maybe that's when you go down that bucket list and try to pick away.
To do them when there's nothing else on the agenda.
Well, that's the next point. I don't, I guess this is open items or discussion. I find it frustrating that we have as many things as we do on the agenda tonight and there's nothing planned for the next meeting. Is there some reason we couldn't have split this? That was a lot to digest, into work through. I don't know if we can.
Because I'm training a new staff member, we have other responsibilities outside of planning commission that we're handling. I assume that it would be nice. Because we have 3 members that are going to be replaced, that if we could handle the items that are pending and let our planning commission get replaced.
Okay, sir. I respect that. I see your, you have a very valid opinion. Just my opinion was it was too much. I wouldn't like to see.
I understand having too much.
Yeah, it was too much.
It was too much. It was a lot.
Let me say this about the 4th member that may disappear, that'd be me. I will continue until there's a replacement. But I don't want to run for another term.
What if nobody wants to replace you?
Ooh.
Can't be replaced.
Cause he just said on the record,
Until he's replaced.
until he's replaced.
So I'm
Sultry and leaves the station. He's here.
I'll serve as long as I am needed.
So that's an ill-defined expiration. So he may, unlike the PUD, he might go for years.
Yeah.
I just like to.
You just got old, bold, brother. So you made the comment earlier and maybe I missed it or maybe I misunderstood. Were you correcting me that I was saying that we're the board, not the commission, or the board was that gave you the direction to rewrite all the stuff?
Yeah.
Who on the board? Because I asked the supervisor this morning and she didn't recall.
The board, so the board, okay, so the board gave you the direction. I just I'm just asking, I'm not trying to.
The planning commission.
Kimmy, do you remember that? No, I want to get to the bottom of this. Where was Danielle given a mission to rewrite our zoning?
I didn't see it at the board.
That's why I'm asking.
And you had mentioned it at the last meeting.
So who did somebody from the board have a conversation?
Or was this a
with
staff
you, or-
thing?
Jade,
So what happened? I'm just asking.
they're just trying to find out who gave
You
them the
guys
authority
can
to
talk.
come in and do it.
You can talk about this. I'm really not.
But
I don't really have anything else. We talked about this. I talked to Grace specifically, and apparently you're having, I think you could bring it up at the board meeting.
But is there a resolution that passed stating hire Danielle to rewrite zoning? That's what I'm asking.
You can bring it up for that time.
Okay.
Last piece of other business I just want to mention. Scott, you got anything?
I do one thing before you close the meeting.
Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you for everybody serving, and I've enjoyed being here for 10 years, and I know we got some bumps in the road right now, but I'm confident the planning commission will work through those moving forward. So I just wanted to say thanks for everybody being here, and I've enjoyed all of the people I've worked with in the time I've been here, and thank you.
Thanks for your service.
Yes.
Yes, and
You too.
good luck on the township board. Don't screw it up because you work for me now.
I think more specific, I'd like to thank the two of you for mentoring. Like I made the slip today. Of
You did.
relatively
You
new. I
did.
made the slip again, but again, in comparison to 17 years of experience, you guys have been very helpful in learning kind of the protocol and how you run it. I appreciate that you try to have this same fixed process, because it's hard to have consistent results if you're changing the process constantly. So thank you.
And you both
The
did a great
processes
job.
have been very difficult here the last couple of years, and I'm not saying it's specific to a staff member or something. It's just there's been a lot of change the last couple of years, and so some of those processes have fallen through the cracks. And that's where I think it's important to try to, I guess, relay to staff what we want the process to be. So that if we want it to be changed, it's changed. If we want it to be the way it used to be, it's the way it used to be, but everybody needs to be on the same page with that so that people aren't frustrated, public included.
I agree, and I think that my concern is clearly there isn't a process currently to have applicants different requirements in the same meeting tells me that there's.
That's what worries me is when we ask one guy about parking and the next guy we don't. And it's not that I'm worried about his parking. I'm worried about the picture that portrays to the guy who was upset because we told him he needed 12 more parking spaces.
Correct.
And then the other guy, we don't even have the math for it in front of us. I think that paints the wrong picture.
Again, since I'm gonna be the one continuing and I don't know if Andrea's present, but she'll watch the video. I'm kind of agnostic to whatever the process is, we just need to follow it.
Yep.
And if we don't like the current process, we need to follow it until there's a replacement process.
Right.
Not liking the current process doesn't mean we can follow a non-process.
I just like to say I really appreciate your service and both of you were great chairmen when you served as chairman for this committee, and I learned a lot from you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ralph.
Well, thank you for your service as chair. You've done a fantastic job.
Yeah, Ralph, thank you.
That's true. Ralph is retired.
We've had some tough meetings.
Yes.
You're not done yet, Ralph.
I'm not done yet.
You're not in yet.
The last thing I want to mention is Model Railroad Open House the day after Thanksgiving, that Friday, from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock, 1757 Hillsborough. I have a couple more flyers up here if anybody wants one. I'm expecting a pretty good turnout. Feel free to bring family, friends, kids, grandkids, and all that. So, hope to see you there. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll support it.
Motion made and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Too official.
Aye.
Look at that.
Yeah.